Hello, and welcome to the Monterey Bay Aquarium live here on Twitch. Hello, welcome, Franz. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. We made it. Looks
We did
like
it.
we made it. We did it. We're here. We're excited. Oh, it's so good to see everyone hanging out and chat with us today. So many familiar fronds over there right now. Hello, and new fronds too. I see some new names hanging out over there. Yes, fancy now. This is our fancy
Look
new
at us go.
layout that we've
Production
been
production value through the roof there, Emily.
Thank you. This is what you do when you have an OCD person who's just like, I gotta make boxes for everything in OBS.
You got it.
So nailed it. Hello, fellow squids. I hope that everyone's doing well today. We're very excited to be here with all of you. For those of you who might be new to our stream, hello. My name is Emily. I'm part of the social media team here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. I say here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. I'm over in my house right now. Welcome to quarantine. 11 months later. So I'm across the bay actually right now, streaming from my house.
Waving at you there, Emily.
Hello, Pat. You're that way. Hello, Pat. But part of the social media team here, I'm the one who is going to be controlling the stream today and actually doing the gameplay. So if things break, it's all my fault. The person who is going to be in charge of saying many puns and carrying the conversation for the most part while I panic on the technical end of things is, of course, with us always. My good friend, my buddy, my pal, my friend, our terrible boy. It's Pat. Hey, Pat, how's it going?
Hey, everybody. Hey, it's going good, Emily. Thank you so much for setting all of this up because we're very excited. We've actually been preparing for this since the first stream because we got a very excited direct message over on Twitter, I believe, when we were done from our esteemed guest joining us today. He was very excited to see us streaming their game. So very excited to have Matt Nava here with us, creative director behind the amazing game that we're about to play today. Thank you so much for being here, Matt. You're right there above us there on the stream. How are you doing today?
Very good and very excited to join you. Like you said, I was super excited to see you guys playing the game that we made, and obviously we share a love for the ocean and all things in it. So it's going to be super fun to talk about it as we go, and really look forward to it.
Yeah.
So.
No, definitely looking forward to the conversation that's about to happen here. Just needed to make sure that the pun button was reset for that first one there. We do have a pun button, Matt. So if you have any,
it's not working on my stream deck, so I'm gonna fix that real quick.
Oh, okay. Well, then there you go. So it's the good thing we tested the pun button before we got going because we kind of want to see where we're at by the end of the stream there with those puns. But I understand that you are also. These puns are not just a fluke. You're dolphinately interested in speaking with Porpoise and having some more puns.
I get my feet wet a little bit. I don't know how far I'll dive into it, but
yes,
we'll see.
Oh man, look at that, everybody! I think I found my soul mate. Sorry if that one fell flatfish, but just had to go for it for the halibut.
Man. I don't know.
Some of the folks
keep up.
No, it's fine. So, some of those, Matt, have been they're magical incantations. One flows into the nets at this point from all the tours and everything we do at the aquarium. Look at all the folks' love of the puns there in the chat. But here, while Emily gets some of the tech stuff sorted, Matt, before we dive into the game very quickly, if the folks out there are not familiar with you, can you give us a little bit of a background of where you're from, what your job is, and what your role was in the creation of Abzu here?
Yeah, sure. So I am a video game creative director. I run a small studio called Giant Squid. We're very inspired by the ocean.
It's the greatest name, by the way.
A very good name.
I don't think, anyone else can come close. I don't think anyone can come close.
Yeah, we're the Squid
Pat,
Kids.
You're killing me.
So, yeah, and Abzu was our first game, and we just loved the ocean. It was really inspired by experiences I had as a scuba diver, just here off the coast of California, the Anacapa Islands and Catalina, kelp forests and stuff like that. So, yeah, and my job, what I really do on the game is create the visuals and the narrative, and I work with a fantastic small team of talented artists and programmers who make it all work. So that's what we do.
How many people on that team that launched Abzu?
I think it got up to like 12 people.
Okay, wow.
Mostly programmers and a couple level designer artist type. Yeah, some really smart people. So
there you go. A dozen folks there working together. That's excellent. Sorry, that was a dozen egg joke. I'm not really sure where that came from. It wasn't my best work, but you miss every shot you don't take. So look at that. We've got so many folks here in the chat that are very excited to have you here. We've got Sakura Tokido mentioning they remember seeing Abzu back at E3 and jaw literally dropped like a basking shark in the game.
Excellent.
Ready for all of that ocean content to come in. So
that was a fun time for sure. Yeah.
Good stuff. All right. And my understanding before we dive into this too is that you formerly you visited the Monterey Bay Aquarium back in the day, which also helped kind of inspire some of the ocean stuff. Is that?
Oh, absolutely.
Is that
When I was a kid, I traveled up there and I loved it. It's just a super fun, wonderful place. It's just, and I was telling you earlier, I just really love what you guys have done with the social media, especially during the quarantine. It's just a really fun way to extend the ideas of the aquarium. There's a lot of cohesion between what we're doing at Giant Squid and what you guys are doing. So very cool.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I know from our first playthrough, you could really get the sense that you had a love of the ocean and a very specific lens about the ocean life, the ecosystems, how all those animals interact together. And just the feeling that comes from playing the game really comes across. And that's part of the design ethos of the aquarium. What we try to do is provide this feeling of being in the ocean. So could recognize it right away. Literally game recognized game, because you made a video game there. So that was great. And Emily, what was it like to play the game? As we were about to jump into it here, you were the one controlling everything. How was that for you?
I think that there were definitely like moments where we teared up.
Oh wow!
Just like from the first moment, just like hopping into the game, and we played it pretty early on into quarantine too. It was right after the first game that we started playing was Animal Crossing, and then we decided to dive into Abzu, and a little bit of a different vibe we were talking about before than Animal Crossing. And while Animal Crossing is kind of giving you this, reality that's not reality to jump into as this form of escapism. We were indoors, we were stressed out beyond belief, and I hadn't been in the ocean at all in months, and so like hopping into the game, it just felt like you were hopping into the ocean again. And it was just like this moment of just connection to the ocean that we hadn't had in so long. So and then of course the whole storyline and everything is just beautiful, and so it was
that's
the
awesome.
best.
That's so satisfying to hear.
Yeah.
That's like when I was pitching this game originally, that was the pitch. It was to create a connection with the ocean, because that's the thing that I just hadn't seen in a video game, in a way that I had felt when I went diving. And so to see that you guys had that, that's just so satisfying to hear that. So
you created the antithesis to all the water levels that everyone hates from other.
It's funny too, because the water level is just like this, it's infamous. Like there's so many bad ones. So yeah, exactly. So, but as like a small indie team, it's like, well, let's do something, focus on something no one is focusing on. That's our way to kind of have our identity, and it's just, we could do it better than anyone else if we focus on it. And so that was it.
Though you're mentioning those parallels, I mean, in a sense, the aquarium, we're kind of focused on something that very few other people are focused on, just in a sum total of what humans are up to. Obviously, there are millions of people around the world that are, billions of people in the world that are directly tied to the ocean for their food and everything. So like, it's definitely something that a lot of people around the world think about a lot. But I'd say that in our society, in the US at least, the ocean is still kind of what you're mentioning, that scary place that's sort of like, it's mermaids, it's Jaws, it's all of these things that are they're not a very real feeling of what it's like to be in the ocean, and so few people just end up diving, end up going snorkeling, and having a one-to-one interaction with these animals. And a lot of people won't make their way to the ocean, and that's just, there's so much land, so many areas where people are, and so having a game like Abzu, or having our webcams and things for the aquarium, is a way for people to build that connection. And there aren't there are far fewer aquariums than there are like fast food restaurants, as an example, just like once you've reached us, you've kind of funneled through a lot of different layers of. And so now it's like, okay, what do you want to learn about? You want to learn about the ocean? So yeah, I feel like there's definitely similar wavelengths of thought.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Real quick,
right.
Matt,
What's up? Yeah.
I just wanted to share a message from our water quality team is hanging out in the chat right now. Team Water Quality. If you see them in there, that were just also singing your praises, saying they wanted to chime in and say that Abzu is one of their all-time favorite games ever.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Thank
you so much for playing. It really means a lot to me. So.
And Chris on our team Water Quality is somebody who works intimately with the chemistry of the water. If there is anyone who knows whether or not your game has the proper essence, it would be team Water Quality. So.
Yeah. Gotta test that pH,
Stamps. Yeah. Seal of approval.
Yeah, the seal of approval. They're measuring the phosphates and nitrates, everything, making sure that everything's in balance. We already have people
created
in
a
chat
great reaction.
Yeah,
a great reaction.
People in the chat are literally buying your game as we speak right now. So I think this is a good pitch.
Thank you.
That's what's
Thank you very much. Very cool.
Cool. Well,
whale.
Let's
I think we should
dive
play
in.
Whale.
Should we play the game?
Should we play a game? Yeah,
Okay.
I feel like we should. Now we've played through the entire game, so it's really up to us if we wanted to start it out just brand new again, or if we wanted to jump to any of the specific chapters in the game. I'll toss this question out to you, Matt. Is there a favorite thing in the game, any like hidden bits that you, any secrets that you just really love that a lot of people miss in the game that we want to check out? Or
oh man, there are some secrets. Probably started from the top is I would say is the best way to go.
Starting
that way
from
we can
the top. All right.
yeah,
and now we're here.
We
Wait, sorry, that's the opposite of the song.
All right.
Yeah.
Sweet. I'm going to let our Instagram friends know that we are live.
Very cool.
Also, just a huge shout out to the music in this game too. It is phenomenal.
Yes, our composer Austin Wintry is a very good friend of mine and very inspiring to us at the studio as well. There's always a back and forth of like, music's so good, we got to make the game better. Yeah.
Does that happen pretty frequently in making video games? That either the creative direction or the music direction is like really putting pressure on the other one?
Yeah, you realize like,
hey
oh
man,
you got to get the visuals up because it doesn't match the music, and then it goes both ways. He's like, I gotta do another version of the music to match this. Which is cool. It's fun.
That's so funny. That's very reminiscent of the meme going around right now of Phil Collins and Tarzan, where it's just like, you didn't have to go that hard, Phil Collins. Can you show me? I want to know. It's like, dude, it's just a guy who like thinks he's an ape. It's okay. That's awesome. Oh, look at that. Axlaru. Love the music, listening to it yesterday. Oh, that's great.
Awesome.
Goodness. So I know very little about game design, generally speaking, but I understand from learning from like Pixar when they visited the aquarium to do different things that water modeling is incredibly frustrating.
It's tough.
Making sure that water looks good. So this opening right here, I think we nerded out for like 30 minutes.
Hard.
We spent like 30 minutes in the sand just talking about the reflections on the sand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the caustics, as we call them, I guess.
The what?
caustics.
Caustics.
Yeah, so it's like the
Mhm.
refracting light through the waves comes down and crosses and creates these patterns, and you just
Yeah,
have to have that. It's so important for the feel and the mood. The
it
atmosphere
is.
is something we always talk about. But
No, it's so good, and it was a first little bit of interpretation there about how the water waves are creating just a billion different lenses that are focusing the sunlight, and when the sunlight goes over a fish eye, it doesn't blind them. They're actually adapted to that, and that had interesting implications for. I do a lot of underwater photography, and I've always kind of wondered, like, okay, well, like when your strobe is like hitting this fish, like, are you blinding it for a little bit? And the research shows that apparently it doesn't really affect a lot of the shallow water fish very much, specifically because of what the water is doing on a bright day with these bright lenses of incredibly bright sunlight going over them all the time. It doesn't blind them. They're adapted to handle shifts of high intensity of light because of that. So like that was the first little bit of like
wow,
physical oceanography that we got to dive into. And then I think the
I'm
next thing,
learning
Emily,
stuff.
is
That's cool.
we stared
We
at
stared at
these
these
like,
starfish for
Oh, all right.
we went no.
an embarrassing amount of time. Technically, we played the beginning twice because
We did.
we started to play the game at the end of another one of our streams.
Yeah.
Just to be like, oh, we'll just play it for like 10 minutes. And it was like a half an hour of us just staring at starfish and water. And so then the next game when we started over, we're like, well, this part will go quickly. And then we did the same thing again where I think we stared for even longer at everything.
We did, yeah. We had to
That's
change
great.
the YouTube title to Monterey Bay Aquarium plays Abzu very, very slowly.
Very slowly,
Because
yeah.
people were like, you guys didn't play it at all.
Yeah, these starfish, they were super fun to throw in there. We got this code that could let us get things to slide across the ground, and we realized, oh my god, we could put in, all kinds of crustaceans and
Just a
various
field of
starfish and stuff. Yeah, so
And then you have like all of the beautiful schooling animations and everything too.
yes, this is one of the key features of the game is this tech to get the fish to swim in a coordinated way, the schooling and shoaling and all that. And it turns out that it's this thing that is very mathematical. Like you can really kind of break it down what they're doing and program it directly. They are looking at their neighbors, seeing how far apart they are, seeing what direction they're going. And I was reading that, we're coding that stuff, but like we're reading about how fish actually do it, and they're looking at, patterns on the bodies of other fish, and there's all kinds of parts of their anatomy that helps them shoal and stuff. I'm sure you guys know much more about it than I do. But
Oh no,
found it
I just think it's fascinating. I think it's, I mean, it's so much easier for us to just describe to our visitors what's going on. Much harder to then like try to create a computer, a computer program that does that. Yeah, I mean, so many different schooling fish have different adaptations where their schooling behavior is instinctual. And in particular, the fun thing about Pacific sardines, as an example, they have these spots along the side there, along the side of their body. And the difference between the alignment of those spots, it like ties directly into their brain, where it's just like, if it twitches this way, then it goes, like if they see that those spots are turning in a way, they also kind of instinctually follow that. And then they have pressure organs on the side of their head. They don't have the lateral line that a lot of fish do, but they have pressure organs right next to their head, and they can feel the pressure of another fish moving into them. They move over instinctively at the same time. So it's like this interplay of like pressure and it's like that sixth sense. We have a sixth sense that we don't talk about much, but like sense of where your body is in space is one of those senses. You can really see with a gymnast, they know where they are in the air as they're spinning, and that's a different sense than just the regular 5 that we talk about. So yeah, that it's so cool. I mean, this right here was we just watched that for like 30 minutes. We're like, this is so cool.
Yeah, when we got that working, it was magical. At first you get a couple fish working, and it's like, okay, we got like 5 fish moving around. But then when you get up to thousands of fish, and there are scenes in this game that have 10,000 fish swimming around, it's just it was really cool.
Yeah.
So.
All right, Pat, I'm going to ask you to keep
Yeah.
on talking about schooling fish here for 2 minutes while I let Trooper outside. She's
Stream
decided
Pup
that,
has decided.
that her
Matt,
needs outweigh ours.
Matt, if you haven't met Trooper is our stream pup.
Nice to meet you.
Emily's best friend. So Trooper sometimes borks and has feedback about your game. So you have a very loud critic in presence. So watch yourself, Trooper.
Yes,
Trooper's very sharp. Yeah. But yeah, we can keep talking about schooling fish here. So just kind of when you were designing this game, there's so many different biomes that you go through. There's subtropical, tropical, kelp, deep sea, all these different things. When you were planning it out, what was the way that you were kind of thinking about, like, we have to have this animal or we have to have this environment? Like, what was your
it was an interesting question because we definitely thought about that, and I wanted to have everything. It was like I got a lot of questions from people like, where does it take place on Earth? And it's like, well, it doesn't really take place in a specific location on Earth, but it takes place in biomes from Earth, right? And so we wanted to have this journey where you go from the shallow water down to the deepest. And so we kind of took species from all shallow water areas across the world that we could and try to get them in there. So you might find fish that are, from two different sides of the planet, but hey, they're both in shallow water zones, I think. And so that was how we approached that, to kind of give you this world trotting experience on your journey.
No, definitely you could get the feeling watching this that there's something for everybody, no matter what ocean fanatic you happen to be from whichever part of the world. Like, you're gonna recognize some of your favorites, some of the fan favorites there.
Because we were able to get a few hundred species in here, which is shocking to me. Like we talked about, we had 12 people on the team at its biggest, and to get that many species in was just pretty fun. And,
is there any species that didn't make the cut because when you reached out to their representation, their lawyers said, like, there's no way that you're going to put us in this level alongside this insert animal that they don't like?
There were some fish that we couldn't figure out how to get in there. We had them modeled and ready to go, but the scheduling was tight and the programming effort was needed to get like a special behavior for like an oarfish. I wish we got the oarfish, but they swim so differently than everything else, and I wasn't about to put an oarfish in that was swimming wrong. So tough choices.
Yeah, that was a question here from Celestina. Was there a certain way that you picked out certain fish as far as the aesthetic? Did you like, okay, we got too many big fish, got get some smaller fish in there, things like that as well?
Oh, absolutely. Like one of the big important parts of the game was just creating the sense of atmosphere of these places, of these environments, and a big part of that is the fish that are in it create color in the space. They create shape and form, and so like in this scene that's on the camera right now, you see all these schooling snapper, and then you have the Goliath grouper in the back, and since he's the only big fish, you're like, what is that guy? You want to go check that guy out. And so composing the scene so that just the organization of creatures leads you through the space was a big part of designing a game.
This is so cool. This is so cool.
Okay, but we have to ask, what came first? The gameplay mechanic of, people should be able to ride on a fish, or the desire as a diver to be like, oh man, how cool would it be?
Yeah, so that's a real key point about the game, is that, like, obviously when you're diving, you should never go and grab onto a big fish. Like, you should let them do their thing and observe and take in the majesty of their being. But as a diver, like you say, like, there's this desire like this of connection and feel. And so one of the ideas of the game, the thesis, was to make this be the dream of scuba diving. Like, what if there was, what if you could do all the things that you want to do. Like, and the obvious one that like you don't even think about is that there's no air gauge, right? Like you don't have to go back up for air. You just stay underwater. Like, and it's like that sets the expectation that there's no pressure, there's no timer. There, like you're just here to be here. And for me as a diver, that was my experience. Like, yeah, you have the air gauge, you have the tank and all this stuff, but when you're down there, that's not what you're thinking about, you know? And so many games, their first interpretation of like, okay, we're going to do diving, it's like you got to hold your breath because that's, you know, this innate human experience with water. But actually, once you're scuba diving, it's totally different unless you see the space in a new way. There's your long answer. But
no, that's absolutely. I'm gonna, every time I say absolutely, I'm saying absolutely. But no, I think that's really one of the things to me that really stands out. So we just started streaming some Subnautica with some of our Aquarius.
Very different vibe.
And like totally fun game, totally interesting to see, you know, thinking about different evolution and stuff. But yeah, that air gauge of having to swim back up, it that always ties you to your humanity. Whereas here, I feel like this kind of thing ties you to your huge manatee, where you get to just like hang out and just go with the flow. Because it's one of those things, scuba diving is very meditative after a while, like after you're settled, because it's so much focused on your breathing.
Yes.
Because when you breathe in, you gain buoyancy, you come up, you breathe out, you go down, and it becomes this and it really helps you tap into the, you know, this isn't meant to be a pun, but that flow state where you just exist in that moment and you're just going with it. And then every once in a while, check your air gauge and kind of brings you back a little bit. But yeah, totally feel you there. And my follow-up question for you, just in this first episode, I'm just going through the emotions all over again. It's just absolutely gorgeous with the sun going through the kelp forest. Just safe to say that this is your first little level here, inspired by those kelp forests of the Channel Islands, right off of Southern California.
Yes, the giant kelp there is just so amazing, and something that you know, we fought really hard to get the motion. We have a whole simulation of the tide moving across the space, and these things are reacting to it. Because when I dove there, what I saw was it's like underwater architecture. You know, it's not just like, oh, a bunch of, you know, plants or something. It's like they are moving in this amazing slow motion, creating arcs and creating tunnels and columns, and it just is so fascinating to see that space and to be in that space. And it's something that you don't really know what it's like until you're there. So we tried to capture that, you know, a little bit.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And I mean, having kelp be a consistent through line through the game of different colors, different vibes of the kelp. I think a kelp forest is something that so few people experience who are diving, because it's cold. It can be very difficult to get out there. You know, most people in California are experiencing kelp forests, but you know, if they come to Monterey or if they're diving off the Channel Islands, but you know, you dive on a tropical system or somewhere else, like having that verticality and that swaying motion it's just like being in a cathedral, and it's such in that forest. So yeah, anyway, just shout out like to
that dappled light coming through like stained glass, and
so good.
That was another key thing that we did. We created this kind of ceiling of the kelp there, and you have these gaps where the light shows through. We wanted to make you feel like you're in a space, in a room, and which is part of that feeling you get.
Just that right there. Just, I mean, we just end it there, like game of the year every year, like Super Mario Brothers 2 from Donkey. You know, just like it's incredible. I'm sorry to the chat. Apologies to the chat. We missed a few questions here because it's just so fun to talk about it. Some of the questions that people are asking here is there any DLC SEA potential for this? One person was mentioning a dive through time with the paleontological. Oh my gosh, can't say that one today.
It's a tough one.
Paleontological. Boom, nailed it. Time. Do you have any ideas of revisiting this kind of thing? I guess is the general gist of a few questions we have in there.
yeah, it's something that we talk about, and the studio's doing a whole bunch of projects, but I would love to do another underwater thing someday, and uh, because there's so much more that we weren't able to put in the game. The game has a ton, but there's so much more, and it was our first game, and we've learned so much. And it's always interesting to look back at what you've done and say, like, how would I do that now? Now that I know so much more. But at the moment, we're working on new projects and things like that. So, unfortunately, there's no DLC or anything like that planned for Abzu at the moment. But you never know. You never know. The ocean will continue to inspire us. That
you heard it here first.
Of.
The non-committal. No.
That's right.
Yeah.
Got to be non-committal. That's my. That's what I got to do.
That's awesome. I had a question for you. Where did the term Abzu come from?
Oh, so it is from Mesopotamian myth.
Okay.
And there is a story in this mythology about how the world was made from these two bodies of water colliding. It's like salt water and fresh water, and in that language, it was the Ab means ocean, and the Zu means to know. So it kind of means to connect or to understand water, which is the theme of the game, like I mentioned, and so I was reading about this stuff, and it just clicked. I was like, oh my god, what we're making. And everyone was like, no one's going to understand what it means. It's like, it's okay. The game is what it means. So.
It's beautiful. Yeah, getting to know water. I mean, that's excellent. I think I've heard of that myth or that creation story previously tied to certain events of land bridges around the Mediterranean and some of the inland seas breaking open and flooding this whole area. Might be connected to Noah's flood and a few other things there. I could be conflating.
Yeah, it's really interesting stuff, how those myths were inspired by potential real events, and especially the stuff in the Aegean Sea. It's like just incredible history over there. But yeah, the myth is called the Enuma Elish, and actually in the credits of the game, Austin, our composer, worked with professors who have studied Akkadian, mythology and language, and the choir is actually reciting this myth.
Wow.
So yeah, it goes deep.
No, and you I mean, you can feel that. You can really feel that there's an attention to detail on so many different levels that it just feels right. It's not superficial. It's like that's awesome.
Thank you.
Emily, there's many requests in the chat next time for a trooper cam. Yeah, we'll get a trooper cam set up.
Trooper has decided that my cam is her cam and has been trying to crawl up on my lap while we're playing right now. So
that's awesome.
There's a lot of cats who love Abzu. I've seen players share cats trying to grab fish on the screen.
Yeah, that's some of our favorite content when folks are sending us photos of their cats with our different webcams, and there will be a fish that goes by and they just touch the screen oh,
I'd like to have that. Thank you. Yeah.
This one? Thank you. Oh, Celestina is watching Cat Zoo. There you go. That's your sequel idea there. So many people, Fiore mentioning in the chat here, so many people love the soundtrack. Amazing. Yeah, such a great thing.
These little guys.
Idea now. Yeah, what's up? Sorry.
I was going to say, these little drones that you swim with, very inspired by the ROVs of Embari and other organizations. We actually, as we were developing, we just had live cams of deep sea rovers on screen all the time. Just, oh my God, look, they found a whale fall and stuff.
That's awesome. I wondered if the yellow color there was loosely inspired. They look very similar to our AUVs, the autonomous underwater vehicles that the torpedoes that we have that go out pre-programmed to do a lot of seafloor mapping, biological sampling in the water.
Yeah, and actually we put yellow on them and on the character as well, for the same reason that those devices in real life are yellow, because wavelengths of light, yellow stays visible as you go deeper into blue, water. And we found that actually when the character didn't have those yellow colors, like if you went down deep, like you couldn't see the character anymore. So okay,
wow.
we actually have to do it the same way.
Oh, so, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something. A lot of Embari tools are bright orange, bright yellow, specifically for the visibility. A lot of the bright orange ones are bright orange on the surface so that ships don't run into them, and then the yellow ones underwater there. Some of them are visible enough, though, that there are animals around that are very interested in what we might be up to. We have several of these AUVs that come back with shark teeth embedded in them, where one of the landlords was interested in what are you, and comes up and uses its only sampling tool and come back with a little
check out what's
chip.
going on.
Yeah, you could say those AUVs have a little chip on their shoulder at the end. But
it is fascinating how sharks, that like you say, it is their sampling tool, their mouth. They'll just take a little bite of something and see, what is that? They gauge its texture, see if it's edible, see if it's cool. It's not just for eating specifically. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, and not to spoil anything for the folks who might be watching this for the first time, but there is a shark in this game that plays a pretty important role. And the idea that a shark comes up and bites something, not necessarily to eat it, but to test it, like you might grab watermelon and tap on it to hear how it sounds. To the watermelon, it might just be like, what are you doing? You're just trying to see if it's hollow or anything. Squeezing an avocado a little bit just to see how firm it is, and the avocado's like, what are you doing? And that's what a shark might do. And obviously, if you're made of meat and a shark bites you,
kind of bad news.
It's not super fun. But the shark, comes up this, oh shoot, sorry, and just hey man, So in this game, you definitely have you had a specific idea about how you were going to represent the shark character, right?
Absolutely. The shark is this just thing in your mind. As a human being, it's just got this place in your psyche. It's just a powerful image. It's a powerful creature, and it inspires fear, but it also inspires awe, but it's also this super important part of the ocean ecosystem. It's this fascinating, beautiful, majestic creature. And so often you see them portrayed in this very carnal, scary way, because that's the part that is so immediate, right? It's your first reaction, oh my God. But there's more to them. And so what we wanted to do with the shark character in Abzu was to subvert that normal representation, and to show hey, there's actually something more to this character. And so you obviously will see it a bit in a while, but that was something very important to us, to think about how not just the shark, all these creatures were represented. So
that's awesome, and that's actually a thesis statement that we've had a few times in different posts. We're trying to shift the conversation from shark jaws to shark awes, and so you had it right there. Yeah.
That's really what it is. Yeah. Oh,
yeah, your boy.
The deep zone here.
We always like to explore down here,
Not many people see this. This is actually an area that most people don't see.
I think we dove down everywhere.
Good.
Looking for things.
In our slow playthrough that we did.
Yes. It's amazing. There's a bright light up above, and as a game designer, that's how you get people to go somewhere. You just put that bright light, man. People are gonna go.
Go there.
Yeah,
I mean, very
The-
anglerfish-esque, you know. They'd be great game designers, anglerfish.
yeah, all gamers overlap with deep sea fish attracted to bioluminescent lures in a Venn diagram. Like, oh, go towards the light. Just like,
There's a flow theory, like you were talking about, of getting in a flow state, something we talk about in game design, but we also talk about glow theory, which is just if players are lost, just make something glow.
make something glow. We are all moths looking for the light.
It's
We're
very
all that
true.
moth meme. Good question coming from Otter Fox, wondering Abzu or this style of game in VR, is that a possibility? Or is that something that people might be thinking about? Obviously, don't want to give you more work. You're going to have tons of projects you're going to need to get done like pretty quickly to appease the ravenous chat here. But Abzu
yes,
VR?
good problem to have. Abzu VR, is something that we've people have asked us a lot, and I think that there is this kind of sense that you want to be in these spaces, and VR is this way to be there even more closely or more deeply. And for us, it's like the thing that would be the toughest challenge would be the motion of the diver. You're doing these smooth arcs and loops and flips and stuff, and I think that we would need to prescribe some Dramamine for all players if they just had this one-to-one in VR, because it's pretty fluid, the motion. But the idea of creating a specific mode or something that would be VR, that's how I would approach it. It's tough to do all these things as a small team.
Yeah, but this space is just absolutely beautiful, and really has that mythos to it that really makes you feel like this is going to be. There's a lot of spirituality in the game related to the ocean. Can you describe to us the thought process behind these zones here, these sort of spirit temples of the ocean?
Yeah, so like I said, the idea of the game was to not be a simulation of diving, right? Like, so you don't have an air gauge. Simulation. Very good.
Over here.
Instead, we're trying to make it deliver this connection to the ocean and what the ocean is to us. And so these scenes are very surreal, and you are diving into this alternate plane, and now you're swimming above the water, and is it upside down? Like, what is this place? And it's got this ghost architecture, the temple. And so it's kind of a place that reflects if the connection to the ocean was a physical manifestation, what would it be? And you keep returning to that, and it keeps changing and growing. And there's a lot of people who play this game and have different interpretations of it, and we love to create space for those interpretations, and because what it does is it makes it so that the connection that players have is personalized. It's personal, and so as a diver, I come to this space and I feel a certain thing with my experiences of the ocean, and I hope that it kind of gives that to players and inspires that connection as well. So that's kind of the very strange idea of what this place is, but
I love it. I love the Ammonite lights that are going around too, but this similar a lot of this design here that you're mentioning is very similar to some of the design ideas behind different parts of the aquarium, as an example, where there's in a lot of zoo and aquarium museum theory, there's these different visitors that come to your space. There's the scientist who wants to like read every panel, learn everything they possibly can. Like if they miss an exhibit, it's game over, like trip ruined kind of thing. And then there's a whole gradient of people, and it goes all the way to the spiritual traveler who's just there to commune and be in the space. And so there's various parts of the aquarium that are designed to cater to different visitation philosophies. And probably the closest one to this is the Drifters Gallery and then the Open Sea exhibit, which is very minimal. There's not a lot of signs around, not a lot of things going on there other than a massive window and then this exhibit that disappears into the background, make it seem like the ocean goes on forever, and very minimalistic music and everything. So yeah, it's beautiful to see the overlap of game design and aquarium and museum design. And so many areas in the aquarium are minimalist on purpose to cater to those people visiting they're in a different plane than, you know, the kids or parents or other things coming to visit for a different reason.
Absolutely. There's a big overlap we always talk about in the game industry, the overlap between theme park design and game design, like Disneyland and stuff. They have to guide people through and account for all those kind of experiences. But it makes total sense that you have a similar kind of theory for the aquarium. And what you're doing is you're creating this kind of palette and this flow and this arc as you go through the space. And especially with Abzu, we actually drew out these curves of how do we want you to feel at every point? What color is that? You know, and we have this color gradient, this curve, and they all come together to create a story. And, you know, when you visit the aquarium, I imagine it's the same thing. You want to have those exhibits for the scientist type, but also have the spiritual one and expose the different kinds of visitors to those different perspectives on it and create the story for them. So yeah, again, parallels. Very cool.
No, it's amazing. No, and you know, I was very fortunate to be part of an aquarium team that got to go visit the Pixar Studio campus because they did so much work with us for Finding Dory, and they have a very similar design ethos where on the wall, this was when they were working on Coco and The Incredibles 2, they have on the wall the different photos of the storyboard with specifically so that people can look at it and see the map of the colors.
Yeah.
To track the story through the feel, so you can see the whole movie on the wall in various panels and see that flow. And so yeah, I think so many design ethos, so much of that is the same thing of you can help people feel a certain way through good design. So I mean, expertly well done here, I have to say.
Thank you. Yeah, so like what just happened in the game is this room we just returned to transformed as color, you know, and it has a completely different vibe. There's, you know, we make fish appear, now it's full of life, and so again, it's just this very simple little narrative arc, and you know, but it's very effective. So yeah, this room has the manta rays, and they're super fun because we were able to get each one to have a slightly different pattern color on
Yes. Yeah, we noticed that you could tell them apart.
Cool.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There's one that's like all dark black, I think, somewhere. He's a favorite of ours, I guess.
Oh, this is a good question for you here. There's outside of the beautiful wildlife and design there's a lot of very ornate architectural work in here. So is that another passion of yourself on the team for the ornate architecture? The question here is from Reb Makash.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. You know, I think architecture is a big interest of mine as well, and for the same reasons that I love the ocean, it can also create a space that connects deeply to people, and how architecture does that. It's similar to the kelp, you know, you can make a spiritual experience through it and design a narrative. And so I saw this connection between those two things. So there's a lot of architecture inspired by religious architecture in the game from around the world, but one of the big motifs is the mukarnas, which are this ornate ceiling dome design work from Islamic architecture, and they're very similar. They're almost like a coral, You know, they have this similar kind of almost fractal pattern to them, and so that was something that we tried to make a connection there, to show that
awesome.
there was this culture, you know, that was connected in the game's world to the ocean.
I love that integration. I just had a few sighs of joy seeing the rooster fish go by and the jacks. I don't know if you've done any diving in Baja, but off of Cabo Pulmo, there's this marine reserve there, southern tip of Baja, and this is pretty much the environment, the animals, the mantas, rooster fish, the jacks. I've seen all of those on a dive. It brought me right back there.
That's so cool.
Just now. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I love those. The jacks. It's funny because we were researching all the fish names, and they have so many names. There's also the Pegasus fish, the horn.
Mm-hmm.
It's so crazy. I love those guys.
The diversity of fish, body plans, shapes, so many different body styles for an animal. You know, Emily was riding on the back of a manta, and then you've got like this completely separate fish with a horn sticking up the front. But yeah, so this is some of that architecture there. So there's not a lot in our first playthrough. There's not a lot of expose. There's not like a panel that has text that tells you like this is the story of these ancient people. You kind of piece it all together from like this beautiful panel here on the side there that Emily is looking at. I don't want you to like have to create a story that you have to stick to or anything, but like what was the general vibe you're going for this ancient civilization or this modern ancient ruined civilization? Like what was the backstory there that you were thinking of?
Yeah, so in the game you discover these glyphs, and they're very abstract. They leave a lot to interpretation, and again, that was to let the player kind of create their own mythology in the world, but there is this kind of very basic structure of this culture that was connected with the ocean that has been lost. And as you go deeper, you discover more about that connection through these glyphs. And then you see what kind of happened to them. And you can piece together how the character that you play is related to those elements. And so it all is kind of to support this idea of the character being this character that's discovering their rediscovering a connection to the ocean, which is mapping to us as people. We have a connection to the ocean, but like you said, not many people kind of see it or feel it. And so rediscovering this thing that is already inside us, that is so important and so kind of deep, and so even when you look at fish, like you can see the parallel, like that the fins, they're your arms, you see the eyes, like you can already see that connection. And so kind of like bringing that into the focus and seeing that that, oh hey, it's not just this character in the game, like I have that too. So that's all of that is supposed to be what this kind of story that you discover with the culture is illuminating.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And just right here, I mean, just that detail that you're mentioning at the start of the stream here about how the character is going in this slow circle as waves and tides and things are going over them, like this circular motion. This is something you feel as a diver.
The tide simulation.
Yeah,
it was critical
moving around
when we got that in, because first we had the character and it was just kind of like you're in outer space, just floating and still. And then we were like, this doesn't feel right. You gotta get that sway, and to make it so that everything in the world is affected by that. The kelp and the motion of the fish and the character, it really makes them feel like they're in the same environment. Anything we can do to make them feel like that, it just increases your sense of being there. So yeah, that was a really fun one.
It's literally immersive game design.
Yes.
Is what
dive right in.
Boom.
Matt, we had a
yes,
really
Emily.
good question from Tino's over in the chat. Do you have any favorite places to dive in the world?
Oh, well, probably my favorite dive was at Anacapa Island, which is one of the Channel Islands off the coast here of California. It's an incredible. It's the smallest one of this island chain, and it has this rock arch. It's just amazing. And I went out there on a boat and jumped off the boat into the kelp forest right off the edge of the island there, and swam around there with some sea lions who came to say hi, and just had this incredible time with the sea lions there, just in the kelp forest, and super good visibility. Oh, there's a shark.
Oh, shark friend!
There she goes.
So,
Shark friend took umbrage to being filmed without signing a release there. I think that's what it was all about. It was about intellectual property and image things, right? Like that was why the shark bit the camera.
yes,
That's my understanding.
You got to get that stuff on paper and writing first,
Critical, everybody.
Yeah, so we read about how some of those submersibles that you guys had some encounters with sharks.
Yep.
Little inspiration for that scene.
A few little toothy remnants here.
Yeah, and a little foreshadowing.
This is so cool.
Oh, there's the leatherback.
Leatherback.
Yeah.
Love these ones. Matt, this is a question for you. So we had somebody early on in the chat here. I forgot to mention, we were talking about this a little bit before we started streaming. They were mentioning that your game should win just an award for being the only game out there to show the proper feeding technique of a goblin shark. We talked about how it was very important for you to get the feeding technique correct. This is something we asked some of our friends at Beyond Blue when they were on our stream.
Oh, cool.
Are you aware of what a leatherback throat looks like?
It is very terrifying.
There you go.
Yes, they are pretty wild. A lot of spikes, which is very interesting. And I believe it's to help secure jellyfish, which are apparently very slippery.
Correct. Yeah, they'll bite down onto the jelly, and then they'll also swallow a bunch of water. And when they push the water back out, the spikes point down the throat to hold onto the jelly part, so they can ratchet it down into their gullet, even as they're taking in water and spitting it back out as they eat.
It's so fascinating. Like, we learned a lot about how fish feeding works, because there's a simulation of the fish actually will eat smaller fish and things like that in the game. And I didn't know this, but a fish jaw just doesn't go like this. It has these moving levers that like unfurl and push it forward, and it creates a tube that extends. And the actual thing is, it's not like moving to grab things, it's sucking things in. It's called suction feeding, I think.
Creates negative pressure by creating a ton of extra volume in this same space.
Exactly. And so I thought that was so fascinating. You see it, and it's so fast. I mean, they are so insanely fast when they snap their jaws forward like that. And some of the fish can really extend a long distance. Like there's one called like a sling jaw.
Yeah. Those protrusible jaws that hinge down
amazing.
And then out, and then that way all at the same time. Yeah.
Emily, I think this was one of the parts of the game where we were just like laughing with joy.
Just delight.
That's awesome. Yeah, this part, you had this kind of very, explore at your own pace level right before this, and you wanted to nice it up. Now we have in this scene this big open area with a lot of fast motion. Bring in the dolphins, and these are the common dolphins that are just fascinating to me, because you always see dolphins, like the bottlenose, kind of a gray color, but common dolphins have these incredible yellow streaks on their sides.
Yeah,
there's so much variety and coloration of dolphins that I didn't realize until I started making this game and researching it.
That's awesome. Yeah, we've had a few in the Monterey Bay here, a few moments of super pods of common dolphins where there's hundreds of them going by, and that's one of the cool things. Emily, I know we've been off the back deck of the aquarium, and then you just see the water boiling and moving by the aquarium, and you're like, somebody get on the scope, and you like look, and it's just 100 dolphins going by, chasing a bait fish ball towards the beach, and then back out, and then in and out like that.
That's amazing. Yeah, the techniques that they invent to trap fish at the beach or at the surface or in the mud, or like, I mean, it's just amazing the
And
technique. Yeah.
This part, Emily, I think we spent a long time in here too. So Emily's done a bunch of research in Baja California, kind of in that zone where vaquitas would be. And so we were talking about this. Actually, when we did the stream, we mentioned how there might be more vaquita in this game than actually still exist in the wild. There's less than 20 of them, as far as we know, that are still out there in the Gulf of California. So this was definitely a sobering moment here, Emily. We're talking about that Gulf of California ecosystem.
Yeah, the vaquita, they're this extremely endangered porpoise whale, and there's one. They're amazing because they're so small. I think they're the smallest type of dolphin.
They are,
and but they're just adorable, and when we were making it, we were reading about them. And at that time, there was, I think, 60 left, years ago when we made this game. And we had the same conversation where it's like, well, it would be, it's pretty crazy because this might be the last place people are going to see these guys, if we don't do something about helping them.
Yeah, this was definitely an emotional moment. I did research down in Baja, and part of that research involved working with fishermen and working with small communities, teaching them about the vaquita. And the only interaction with vaquitas that I've ever had before were finding dead ones that were washed up on beaches, trapped in nets and things like that. And so to be here in the game and just be hanging out with one in real life, right now I'm getting emotional about it, because you're right, Matt, this might be the only interaction that people have with the vaquita before it disappears.
Yeah, and so that work that you're doing down there is so important, and so thank you. But
yeah, well, the conservation story of the vaquita is it's stated in very simplistic terms a lot of the time, but there's actually so many aspects, international political aspects around the vaquita, because a lot of the reason that they're going extinct is because, directly because of gill nets that are happening for totoaba swim bladders, which are sold in international markets largely over on the other side of the Pacific. And you would think that, okay, you just read about that, it's just like, oh, it's an international fisheries, disconnecting the fishery resource from the market that's being sold out. It's one of those international commodity pieces. But actually it's way more than that, where part of the reason that so many of these fishermen down there don't have much other choice economically to provide for their families is because there's been a decimation of the northern Gulf of California from the lack of water coming from the Colorado River that used to drain into this massive delta at the northern part of the area. The Colorado River actually ends almost 90 miles inland from reaching the sea now, and that's largely due to urban development in the Los Angeles basin, which is fed largely from a lot of that water coming in there. So there's massive. So this porpoise is going extinct because of urban sprawl, suburbanization, highway mentality, as many other wiser philosophers have said, you dig into one thing and then you realize it's connected to the whole rest of the universe.
It's a very complex web, and
incredibly complex. Yeah, it's not as simplistic as this animal is going extinct because of these human actions. It's this society, the culture, is what allowed for this animal to then be at the receiving end of all of these changes. So it's a very it's a change of heart less than a change of activity that really needs to happen for a lot of these conservation stories.
It's really true.
You were going to say something.
Actually, you mentioned the swim bladders, and that reminded me of an interesting lighter themed
a more buoyant something
more
that can
buoyant.
bring
very buoyant
something that'll float everyone's boat a little bit better.
Yeah, when we were animating the shoals of fish and figuring out how they move, at first you just get them moving the way they're going. So if they're moving forward, they're pointing forward. They move down, they point down. And that was like the most straightforward thing. But it looked really weird, and especially if they go up or down. And we realized by going, we actually visited the Long Beach Aquarium and just looked
Shout
at
out
fish.
Long Beach Aquarium.
Very cool. And we just watched them, and it was like, what we realized was we weren't taking into account the swim bladder, which is a thing that they can kind of use to raise and lower without actually rotating and using their tail to swim up and down. So when a fish is moving, we actually clamp their vertical rotation. So if they're trying to go straight up, they actually will use their swim bladder, and that made it look so much more natural in the simulation. But taking into account the swim bladder was important.
That's so
that's
cool.
Awesome. I think in this game is there a scythe butterfly fish in this game?
I don't think so. I don't know.
There might be a butterfly fish that's
be
similar. So the scythe butterfly fish is just a very interesting fish from an aquarium perspective. The first aquarium collector, Mr. Dave Powell, who's just a legend in the aquarium world, was a collector for the aquarium, collector for the Steinhardt Aquarium at the California Academy of Sciences. He pioneered this method off of Cabo San Lucas. There's this deep canyon you can dive down into, and there's this endemic species of butterfly fish called the scythe butterfly fish that lives down very deep. And they wanted to exhibit them in the aquarium's first Baja exhibit, and he had to figure out how to get this fish and bring it back safely to the surface. And he had to account for the expansion of its swim bladder on the way back up, because it wasn't one of those fish that just like, is going up and down a whole lot and therefore has that adaptation. And so what he pioneered was bringing hypodermic needles with him underwater. And when he would catch the fish, he'd come up and then he would just burp the swim bladder on the way up, just like boop, poke, let a little bit of air out, bring it up. And, the fish are very resilient after that and was able to bring them up that way. But so burping the swim bladder of this fish in collecting trips, you can imagine being 120, 130 feet Mexico with this fish, you're bringing it up and you're just, being ever so perfectly poking of its swim bladder to burp it on the way up. And that's how we had scythe butterfly fish on exhibit.
Wow. Yeah, because if you don't do those things, then the pressure of the water makes things expand and contract, and it's something you learn as you when you go scuba diving as well. You have to keep breathing so that your lungs can keep adapting the size, especially as you're going up and down.
Yep.
And that's fascinating. Wow.
Yeah, our swim bladders are external BCD there on the back, and so whenever I'm doing the feeding shows at the aquarium, and I'm like, got my wetsuit on, my weight belt, like mask and all that stuff, and then like the moments where I hit like perfect buoyancy, I'm just like, yay, like great. And then you have all these fish next to me, they're just like,
nice job, good job.
No, good, that's cute. No, very nicely done.
That's funny.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, hey, Emily.
Hey, Pat.
How you doing playing the game again? What are you remembering from our first playthrough? I mean, other than the fact that we're at least 3 levels in an hour, which is
so
unheard
much
of.
faster.
Unheard of.
So much faster than where we were going.
Speed
before.
runs over here.
Although somewhere along the way, I did lose my little robot buddy, so I gotta go find it so we can keep on going. I also saw some of our staff hanging out in the chat there and talking about the game and saying what a joy it's been to play. There's a little robot bud. Hello, buddy.
I love the garden eel animation. Have you seen garden eels in the wild?
I have not seen them in the wild. I saw them in an aquarium though.
Okay.
I love those guys, and this little area right here. There's a lot of those garden eels around, and we wanted to make sure that you would notice them, so we hid that guy that you're trying to get right there. In order to activate him, you have to do your shout, which affects the garden eels that are right next to you, so it kind of secretly teaches you how to interact with them. That's a little game design trick.
That's so smart.
Awesome. Yeah, that was something What was that, Emily?
I was like, and of course this animation here with the tube
Yes.
worms.
The tube worms.
Love them. Any game that is willing to have a tube worm is like solid, because like if you go diving in the Monterey Bay, the majority of things that you're seeing are worms, anemones, sponges, tunicates, algae, little crabs, little shrimps. Like you see schools of fish certainly, but the vast majority of animals are on a much smaller scale. And paraphrasing the ecologist Ed Ricketts, who lived here along Cannery Row in the Steinbeck days, he mentioned that, you know, humans are often very attracted to the novel, the, you know, standout, rare species. But if you want to learn how an environment truly works, you really need to pay attention to the boring animals that are so abundant that you don't even notice them anymore, because those are the ones that have truly mastered that environment. So the fact that you can have these other animals going by, but then there's a tube worm down there, just like, oh yeah, hey, nice one, like cool looking vaquita up there, but like meanwhile there's millions of us. We are legion, you know?
Exactly.
This was super cool. The tuna
With
swim.
the tunas, yeah.
This is something that I don't think a lot of people know, is that how big and fast tuna are. They're awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
They are like the size of a cow, and they go the speed of a cheetah. It's insane. They're just amazing.
I love that comparison. The size of a cow, the speed of a cheetah.
When you think about it like that, it's like it puts this image in your mind. And you really, because people know how big a cow is, you know. It's like, wow.
Yeah, you're driving down the highway and just like, cow. Oh, the cow is keeping up.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, so I've actually seen tuna diving in Mexico. And so if you read the log from the Sea of Cortez, there's the term tuna water, which is if you go off the coast here 20 something miles, you'll hit the California current, where the water is about this.
Get distracted by the game. This is, yeah.
I'm trying to do my job, but you did such a good job. I'm looking at yours. No, like there's tuna water, and this is very much the color and the life that you find. Maybe not the orca, but you have this green water here. Flippy.
Just breaching with some orcas, you know. Just a casual day in Abzu.
That was quite the occasion just then. Yeah.
Dolphin.
But the it gave me the willies, free willies, of course. But the tuna water is this blue water that's 68, 70 degrees in the California current, 20 miles off the coast there. And when you see those tuna, they're in this very cerulean water, like it's very specific. And so I was diving in Cabo Pulmo, and we got in the water, and it was like, oh my goodness, like this is different feeling water. And it felt like that tuna water. And then we heard on the dive dolphins, and we're looking around looking for the dolphins, couldn't see them. But the dive guide at the end of that dive said, like, when you hear those dolphins whistling, often they're hunting the tuna. And we're like, what? They're hunting tuna? So then on the second dive, we're in the water, and you hear squeak, squeak, there's a dolphin. And then we look up, and we see 3 or 4 big yellowfin tuna that are booking it over our head. Like, we're 60 feet deep. We look up, and we see them go boom. We're like, whoa. And then we hear squeak, 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 and we turn around, and there's a dolphin, and the dolphin's swimming after them, and then and it's not close to us, but it like stops, looks at us, does some squeak, 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 swims away, and we start like, generally trending towards where that dolphin was, trying to see, what's going on. There's a current, we can't really get there, but so this dolphin came over, squeak, 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 chasing the tuna, stops, looks at us, then swims off, comes back with a second dolphin. And they go squeak, 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 squeak. They leave, come back with a third dolphin, squeak, 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 and then they take off. Where it's clearly like, bro, there's some divers. Look, chasing after the tuna. Like, oh, I gotta get my buddy. Frank, look.
Frank, have you seen this mammal?
Have you seen? They're bubbly. And so it was like this. It was this crazy, just such a fun interaction to just be like, there's tuna. There's the dolphins that are hunting the tuna, and the dolphins are like, oh, I gotta go. Hey, everybody, take a look.
Come on, Rand.
The gringos are diving.
Yeah.
Anyway, such a
That's
fun.
amazing. Those dive stories, like that's the stuff that's just so incredible about going to the ocean. You know, you might have an experience like that. Just amazing.
Yeah. The game brings us right back. All right, we're looking. How are we looking there, Emily? Any thoughts on your end? Any questions that you're having? We haven't
I'm
gone
just
into too many secrets. Not too many.
That's true.
No, we've been just talking so much. I think we've passed a couple, but
Oh no! Wait,
That's all
swim
right.
back! Swim back!
What's one? Is on those glyphs? You know, there are different like drawings and stuff. Was there like a drawing of something modern, like an iPhone or something, like on there, just like as a little?
there's
nod or
actually
anything?
some very secret glyphs that our artists snuck in there that were kind of little foreshadowing of our next games. So,
That's so
little
cool.
One of those.
yeah, there's some of that around. But yeah, now we're back to this kind of this spirit world.
There's
And-
been a style of. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say these are Ammonites. These characters floating around here, extinct creatures, very often confused with a nautilus, but not quite the same. And one thing that's interesting about them is that their fossils are very numerous in the rock, and it's actually so numerous that I think paleontologists are able to like date rocks by the density or qualities of
Yeah, the
ammonites that
densities
they
and
find.
species. Yeah.
Yeah, and but only the shell remains. It's very rare to see anything more of this kind of soft tissue, and so when we were researching, like, okay, what can we make for these guys? You know, that we had to actually kind of build our own interpretation of what they do, and so we had this taste of what scientific illustrators do when they construct extinct species. And so I was reading all these research papers about various ideas of their morphology, and did they have a little hood? Could they retract in? Did they, were they floating? Were they on the ground? Like all these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really fun aspect of
that's so
designing
cool.
creatures like this.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Did you know that for these animals, their favorite meal was pizza back in the day?
Is that right?
Yeah, because it's the Ammonites of the Round Table.
Wow.
My role in these streams is to have somebody say something very earnest, informative, and uplifting, and to punctuate it into people's minds with a terrible joke that releases all those endorphins and hopefully helps that memory coalesce. That's at least the scientific thing that I'm attempting. That's what I'm trying.
Hey man, there's method.
Look, see, McGrib over here with the boo, the oh buoys. That's how we know that they're going to remember that. All of it. Something you may or may not have seen recently. There was some of the first live video of a ram horn squid. You may I don't know if you've heard about it. They have an internal shell that looks just like a ram's horn. It's like the spirula might be the name. And how there's all of these really incredible ornate shells related to when shelled cephalopods ruled the oceans. Emily, how long was it that it was like the age of the cephalopod, where it was like tens of thousands of species of shelled cephalopod?
Was millions of years that they.
I don't
yeah,
know
like
the
specific number. Yeah.
The Devonian? No.
The Cambrian, I think, maybe.
Oh yeah, I mean they were in the Cambrian and the Devonian there.
Yeah.
But
incredible time in the world's history for sure.
Yeah, and there's all of these really intricate shells that are bizarre spirals and things like that, and they're thinking that a lot of those, we used to think like, oh, well, there's this like head sticking out of it, like the ammonites and the nautiluses, but they're thinking that probably many of those were also internal shells, internal structures inside of it. So kind of similar to how, we'll see all of these ancient animals, you have to try to recreate them as best as you can. And if you were to take a chicken skeleton and try to recreate a chicken from it, you're not going to get the like fluffy, like ridiculous chicken that you might have.
Thing. Yeah.
Right.
That's the other thing. Like I'm obsessed with dinosaurs as well, and I have a ton of dinosaur books from when I was a kid, and you open up any of those, it's like it's so wrong now. Like the idea of what these things are is
the vertical T-Rex.
Yeah, so it's fascinating to hear that there's even new theories about what these guys are. I need to catch up on that. That's awesome. the shell being internal. I think that squid still maintain. I think it's like the cuttle bone or something. It's like this
Yes.
very perforated interior kind of bone-like structure that.
Yeah,
can't see from outside.
cuttlefish have that cuttle bone that looks it looks like a feather, and it's actually their buoyancy and structural chamber. And apparently that's where the term cuttle comes from an ancient or an old French term for feather, and it was thought that they were feathers of ancient an ancient seabird. A giant seabird was those cuttle bones there.
That's interesting.
And squid have an internal pen. So it's a very thin, almost plasticky looking thing. So sometimes when we do feedings with the sea otters, there'll be what looks like, a plastic straw wrapper in the water, and people will be concerned, pointed out to us. It's just like, thank you for letting us know that's actually the pen of a squid. Provides a little bit extra structure there. You can use that pen to dip it in the ink sac and, write messages on your friends who've fallen asleep on the research cruise. Not, you could do that, not to say that it has happened, but if you wanted to.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. Emily, how you feeling over there? Sorry if I'm talking too much. I want to make sure you're getting words in edgewise too. But just Matt and I are vibing over here. On your gameplay,
I'm here for it, man. I'm vibing with the game over here because we haven't played since we did our playthrough before, and so I'm just revisiting an old friend right now. So
I love the color palette of this room so much. The pink kelp and the like teal walls.
Yeah, we just
so sick.
Pushed it, and might as well, because that's how it feels like when you go diving. It's like it's so vastly different than what your experience is normally day to day. You're going into another world, and in the video game we have the opportunity to make it very dreamlike and surreal. Actually, in this space there's this surface of kind of like underwater water. Which is inspired by kind of like brine lakes at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah. The brine pools.
The brine pools. And those are fascinating because you see footage of them and you're like, wait, I thought we were underwater. Why is there water? It's actually like this condensed, heavier liquid stuff that forms pools. Very surreal.
Yeah, this would be a great part of the game if you ever wanted to make it a first-person shooter. This could be the halocline room.
Yes, actually.
Right?
So the halocline, isn't that the thing where you can actually see a shimmer where, as you're diving, where the temperature of the water drops or changes?
That's the thermocline.
That's the thermocline?
So the halocline is
so
going to be the difference in the salt concentration. But you can still see that too sometimes because...
Really?
Yeah, because it's just so much denser. It's so cool. Just those different layers that the ocean has.
Exactly. Yeah, the ocean has many different ways for the water to get striated, to be stacked on top of itself, and so you'll have the thermocline, which is warmer water on top of colder water, which is denser, and the halocline is when you're going to have saltier water. So those brine pools is super heated, or not super heated, super saturated water with salts, and so it sinks and is denser than the water that's above it, and so that's why those salt pools can be very toxic to other animals that are there.
Yeah, you see the fish just hit it and go like, burp, just kind of pass out.
It's like the carbon monoxide poisoning of underwater in a sense.
Right. Yeah. That's fascinating. Yeah, we were studying some of that stuff, and on a dive that I had in Catalina, we saw the thermocline, which is like this incredible mirage-like effect where you can see the temperature drop, and you put your hand through and you can feel it. Like it's like, whoa, it's cold right there and it's warmer right here. We had those in the game as this kind of effect. What we found was that it was so foreign that people had no idea what the heck it was. They just didn't get it. But it was really fun to have.
Yeah, that and so it's fascinating that you mentioned that, because as larger bodied animals, we experience the water in a very different way than much smaller animals, and especially animals that are made up out of mostly the water. So like we experience water as this liquid that you can swim through, but it's, you know, it's dense, so you get moved around by it. But if you stop swimming, you're going to sink through it. You fall through it. But for other animals on a much smaller scale, they experience the water as like a molasses, like they're stuck in it. And so like a copepod with all of its little legs, when they tuck in those legs, they're swimming, and then when they open up their legs, they're like walking on the water, through the water. And so a whale experiences the water in a much similar way that we experience air, because they're so much larger than us. It's not like obviously like quite exactly the same, because you know, the air is so much less dense than the water, but like a whale is closer to swimming through air than it is swimming through water like we experience it. And a copepod is walking through the water more like if it's a molasses or like a ketchup type consistency. And wow. Then think about an animal that's like mostly water. A thermocline can be like hitting a wall, right? Like we experience it as a change of temperature, but for them it's like, boom, I stop here. And then there's all of these other convective currents, or different currents. You'll see them out if you're along the shore, especially if you're along the Big Sur coast, where you're up like very high up and looking down on the water. You got this nice tall vantage point. You'll see these areas where there's clearly a disruption and a line of stuff that's kind of mixed up, and there's all these different bubbles of water that are kind of bumping up next to each other. And those can be barriers too between currents. So like you'll have an animal that's stuck in this current and it's not going to make its way in. And when those floodgates kind of open up, you get this influx of gelatinous animals or other animals that flow into the nearshore or into the offshore. So just thinking that like the barriers between water can just be like having a wall. And sometimes when you're out on a boat, you'll be going, nothing. And then suddenly it's a soup of sea nettles where the water is almost all jellies. And then you get out to the other side and it's clear water again, because they're stuck on these rails of physical barriers that the water creates with itself. It's fascinating.
That is really interesting. Actually, one thing is in this game is very subtle. Most people don't notice is on the top edge of the water surface. It's a very common problem in 3D graphics. You have like a tiling texture, right? Like this, you don't want to see it repeat as you go across a plane. And so like one of the things that I was looking at the ocean, and I've driven on those cliffs near Big Sur and seen exactly what you're talking about. You see those currents reflected on the surface, and it actually creates different wave patterns, which creates basically like different kind of porous surfaces on the water that reflect more or less from your angle. So what we did was, in the distance, we have those kind of patterns of different shininess to the water surface to create. I think if you like jump out of the water really high, you might be able to see them in the distance. But
Emily, engage
I'm on
thrusters.
I'm on it. Hold on.
That's so cool. Let's see it.
Oh, that was the saddest little jump there.
little hippie hop.
Little hippity hop. Let's see if I can.
Do we have that power boost?
If you do it 3 times in a row, there you go. Okay.
Oh, you can see that. Yeah, the darker water out on the distance.
Yeah, so it definitely is there. We have these patterns, and that was pretty important to make sure that if you actually do jump up really high, it looks right. If you get on one of those orcas, you can jump with them, and I think you can go even higher.
Okay.
Now again, we're doing this in the game, everybody. We're not doing it in the wild, right? Right, chat? That's right.
This is the dream of scuba diving, okay? Not the simulation. And you can also get them to do crazy flip jumps and stuff. It's pretty fun.
Oh, can you get combos going like it's a Tony Hawk sea?
Yeah, so we found that it's just super fun to jump out of the water, and one of the kind of secret moves in the game is you can do these rolls, just to be playful, and we always talked about it being like almost like a ballet. You just want to move your body because you can in a fun way.
How do you do the roll?
What is it on a Switch? I think it's A button maybe.
Oh. Emily, do a barrel roll.
Do a barrel roll.
Whee!
There you go.
Whoa! Yes.
Woo!
Can we get some GGs in the chat? Some GG gups there for Emily? Oh man, that put a peppy in my step.
So it's cool because I think different. If you're holding the different directions, you can get them to do left or right or up and down. You can do front flips, back flips, and you can do it while you're in the air, which is
Oh, Emily, you know you got to
into
do
the
a
secret
barrel.
moves. So the trick for the best air is to boost right before you come out.
Oh!
That's very good.
Boom.
And the other orcas are going to be following you, and sometimes you can get them all to jump out at the same time, and they copy you, and they do flips at the same time if you do flips. Same with the dolphins. So these are the fun little secrets in the game.
Emily, we're doing tricks.
I was trying to get him to go up again. Come on, buddy. Come on.
Yeah. Good douche.
Oh,
Whoa.
nice. That was good. That was great.
There
Very
we
good.
Nice. So
I can't
don't
embarrass
know.
myself on stream as I try and do all these things.
Let's do it. That was
For
great.
for the game design aspect, the movement of the tail is very naturalistic. But something I don't know, it's not like a super hidden fact or anything, but dolphins and orcas, other whale types, but I think specifically dolphins, they have kind of a spring-loaded tail where they're more efficient than you would imagine if they have to kick up and down. They actually have a spring, like I think it's a ligament muscle interaction where they only have to kick, I think it's down, they only have to like push down, and then their tail springs back up, or the other way, they lift their tail and then kind of springs back down. So they're much more efficient at swimming than, you know, us, where we have to like constantly be moving. We don't have that same springiness that they do. So.
That's fascinating. I learned about something similar in falcons, because our next game had an eagle in it, and we learned that by default they are gripping, and they have to like exert force to open their hand, their talons, and that's because when they're on a branch, they don't want to fall off. So it's a similar thing like with the tail. Like swimming, you've got to optimize for that.
Oh, interesting. Cool. So the hawk equivalent of everybody tweeting like, make sure to unclench your jaw is like, make sure to relax those talons a little bit.
Just,
this is a beautiful room, this whole area.
Yes. So this is actually a secret thing that you're looking at here. So you can see that these little alcoves have the shells in them. And some are missing, and that each one of those little glyphs represents one of the levels in the game. Spoilers, but but it means that there are secret shells for you to find in each of those spaces. So in that first one,
so I found all of them in that level, but I've missed some. This is terrible news, Matt. I have to go back.
Yeah. You've just unleashed completionist Emily. Look out! Look out!
No.
Yes. So it's something fun happens when you get them home. So that is our little incentive for you to go and.
All right, Emily, we're gonna have to go back and
finish
it. This is beautiful. Yeah, you can really see that inspiration of the tiles there from that. You were saying it was Islamic design specifically, or was it Arabic and Persian mixed? Was there?
It's all of that. You know, what we love to do with the architecture is take influences from a whole bunch of places, create something new. And so, you know, the mukarnas, that roof structure, is a very common motif in Islamic architecture. But the tile, we've stolen it from all kinds of places. It's all a remix of our favorite stuff.
That's great. Coming into the next big room here, Emily.
I know this is one of our favorite rooms too.
Oh my goodness, we spent so much time in here. This is where the basking shark is. But that schooling animation of those jacks, that's all the awards that I can possibly give, because I've gone diving in Cabo Pulmo with a school of 10,000 plus jacks, where it's surface to the sea floor, exactly these fish, and it's one of the most, just, your mind can't comprehend it.
That's insane. That's amazing.
So it's, I mean, that is just incredible. And the other aspect too, something I don't know if this was a conscious thing for your design team, there's so much life on screen that it feels like, wow, this is like, you never experience this in the ocean. But we were talking about the shifting baseline of our understanding of how much wildlife there should be in our oceans, from commercial fishing days and habitat change. Climate change has affected so many different animals there. This game really shows you kind of what it should be like mostly everywhere, as far as how much life used to be in the ocean. Was that a conscious thought?
Absolutely. You know, like one of the things that we did was the lore of this world is that civilization hasn't been really influencing things for a while. And, you know, we were reading about the hope spots. Dr. Sylvia Earle, this incredible ocean advocate who's, you know, I'm sure you guys know everything about it, but this is conservation effort to create areas where they're protected, so that the influence of, you know, runoff and civilization and all kinds of things are minimalized. And what they've found was that over a surprisingly short period of time, life can return there and become more abundant. And so, you know, the concept of this game is you wake up and it's like, well, what if that was happening everywhere for a while? What would it look like, you know? And so actually, we put her in the special thanks.
Oh, that's awesome. No, the idea of having those marine protected areas, California really has led the way in a lot of respects, as far as marine conservation areas, national marine sanctuaries. Now globally, they're everywhere. I feel like some really incredible success stories out there for people protecting their natural resources are everything that the Fijian people are doing in their zone, protecting their sharks and everything, their tuna from international fishing fleets. Those hope spot ideas in the Monterey Bay is one of those places. Cabo Pulmo is one of those places too.
That's so awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, that idea, I mean, the Ammonites in the game show you the ocean's been through a lot. And if your goal is to have more of this wildlife out there, leaving it alone, responsibly managing those resources, as the indigenous people of our area have been doing for 30,000 plus years now, I believe is the idea for how long people have been on this continent. So it's really, again, like we talked about before, we kind of know how to do the right thing by the ocean, and it's a systemic appreciation of the value of these organisms as being a market value, or being a intrinsic value to yourself as a living being too. And, whoa, are you gonna make the whale do a flip? Oh, Emily, that was so good.
Oh my god, I can't believe you got that. That's really hard to do.
Yeah, pro gamer.
Pro gamer now.
Very good.
Emily, if this was Animal Crossing, Emily has a disguise, she has a bunch of clothing that is her being a pro gamer. Look at that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's very good.
I am very obviously not a pro gamer, Matt, but I appreciate the positive feedback there.
Hey, what are you, Emily? You're streaming live. You got the RGB lights in the back. Like, I feel like you're making a humpback whale jump out of the water. That's pro gamer move right there. Yeah, making the humpback jump out of the water is the new meta. No, just finishing that idea that, like, it. I feel like a lot of the time, especially learning marine biology, marine conservation, everything, you kind of come at it from the scientific idea of like, well, we got to manage, we got to get data, we got all this information. That's all very, very important. But to what you were mentioning, like there's a change of heart and a change of mind that helps you appreciate why having a whale alive in the ocean is better than having that whale be used for its resources at a commercial scale. So obviously, there are people who have lived in community with these animals over for a long time, they have a different relationship as far as how they're using this animal as part of the relationship. It's that commercial aspect, that separation of the resource from the people that live with that resource, that can have these chain effects. And so, yeah, I just love this idea of, if you let the ocean recover, and if your relationship with the ocean is one of wanting to support biomass and biodiversity, your society looks a little bit different. Your values look a little bit different, and it's really that change of values, less about our interaction, because we've done this before, lived in communion with these animals for as long as people have been around. So
That's really true. And the video game, that's something we thought about when we were making this game, because they can talk to people and reach people in a really deep way. And when you're making something, you got to think, why am I making it? What are we doing here? So that was something that and you don't want to be preachy, you don't want to do all that stuff, but you want to you want to say something about stuff that's important. And so we care about the ocean very deeply, quite clearly.
Yeah. Well, and the easiest way, I mean, and I think you've knocked it out of the park with everything, but same thing at the aquarium. You don't want to be condescending in what you know about the environment, what other people can do to help. And the preachiness, I feel like, comes where people separate themselves from being a part of that culture that might be causing that issue. And you're not preachy if you are recognizing that you're a part of that, and like everybody is in that same thing together. That comes
really
across
true.
Again. Emily, you're exploring the bottom part, because now we know that we have missed a few of these ammonites.
I know,
right?
I'm looking for everybody now. Just like, I gotta find everyone.
I think there might be one around here. I remember. I don't know if you guys already got it. We'll see. One thing that's funny, a funny anecdote about the way this game was made. Sound effects for sea creatures was an interesting challenge, because it's kind of hard to go out there and just record them.
True.
Yeah.
So our sound designer is a really smart guy. His name's Steve Green, but he figured out a way to make dolphin sounds. That was I always found very funny. He got just like a dinner plate and put a little tiny bit of water on it, and then you just kind of rub your thumb on it like this, and it makes little squeaking noises. That's the dolphin sounds in Abzu.
And
That's
that there's some
amazing.
incredibly confused dolphins a few miles away that are just like,
What is that?
someone keeps saying the lasagna got cold when it felt like, what is that squeaky noise? Like, who's... Or even worse, as if this dolphin like, Mom? That's great. Yeah, shout out to the Foley artists out there.
We did the manatee is just a balloon. We made them squeak. Like, they just squeak. It just seemed right. I mean, it's obviously not what a manatee probably sounds like, but
This is one of our favorite animals. Emily just swam by there. The flapjack octopus that you put in here.
oh, awesome. Yes.
So great.
Yeah, we
There
had them
was
crawling around.
There was a moment there where, so there was a researcher that was at Mbari for a little bit, Stephanie Bush, who studies deep sea cephalopods and deep sea mollusks generally. And she was working on describing our local California species of Apisthotuthis, the flapjack octopus, as potentially being a new species. And it would be Apisthotuthis adorabilis would have been the scientific name, but it's still in the works for the taxonomy there.
Interesting. That's very appropriate, because they are very adorabilis.
The adorable flapjack octopus. Who ordered the short stack? We did. Let's see. What else do we have in the chat here? Oh, there was quite a bit there about the squeaky toy that Trooper had there, Emily.
Oh, yes. She is very impatiently waiting for me to finish with work today. Some days she just sleeps through the streams, and other days she is just like, no, it's time to go.
She's just like that younger sibling that's just like, can I have the controller? Basking shark.
Basking shark. That's who I was looking for.
There you are. Yeah.
Now,
Hey,
if this shark stole your wallet, it would be an ice cream shark because that would be Baskin Robbins shark.
Oh man.
See, a lot of those are just straight off the dome, and I'm not sure where it's gonna go. And I'm just very glad that sometimes it works. And
I love that you commit to it though. Like it's gonna happen.
Full steam ahead.
That's what you need to do with those. That's great.
It's the execution that matters. Just the thought. You know, the audience is with you as long as you fail gloriously or succeed gloriously in front of them.
Yeah, these guys, we made them flip very slow.
These are awesome. These are an example of, I don't know if you're familiar with the story of why there are so few basking sharks in our area, but they were considered a nuisance to fishermen, and large industrial fishing boats used to put blades on the front of the ship and just ram through them.
My
they
goodness.
would just go swim, like they're swimming by, and they used to have these massive schools, and there was a bounty for just running over basking sharks. And so nowadays they're an incredibly rare fish to see, the second largest fish in the ocean after the whale shark. But every so often you hear about a fishing boat that's out there off the coast of Big Sur, way out to sea. I think it was maybe 5-6 years ago. Somebody saw 50 basking sharks that were off the coast of Big Sur all going together and then disappeared. Nobody knows where they all headed to. Obviously, as a fish, they can be anywhere, and if you're just a few feet underwater, no one's going to see them. So look at that barrel roll, Emily.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Oh, there's a thresher shark out there in the distance too.
Yes. Yeah, we talked about the thresher shark. We had some wonderful shark scientists with us. Jada Elcock and Amani Weber Schultz, who were on a live stream with us, and they mentioned that the thresher shark is a shark that always looks incredibly surprised at the question you just asked.
Yes,
What?
they have that expression.
Huh? How do you know?
Wide-eyed. They are just a fascinating shark because of that proportion of the tails, as long as their body or longer, and the way that they use it for hunting. Just insane. I mean,
Can you imagine
they whip it and hit guys and stun them.
Yeah, they're the Devo of sharks. When they're feeding,
They whip it good.
They whip it. Can you imagine the indignity of a fish in a fish school being slapped so hard by a shark tail that they pass out? Like, what happened to Billy? Oh, he got eaten by a shark. Oh, did he just get like swallowed whole, like chomped in half? Just like, he got slapped.
Just slapped. Yeah.
Shark comes in,
I've also seen things of orca whales doing a similar thing where
Yes.
they actually do a backflip and scoop through a shoal of fish and stun them that way.
Yeah, there's a video that went viral a few years ago of a somebody who was snorkeling far away from shore with a pelagic stingray, and these orca came up, and one of the orca just like spoosh, just slapped this pelagic stingray and knocked it out, and then ended up eating it.
Wow.
Yeah. Orca is something else with their meals. I don't know if you've heard about the tenderizing that they'll do, where they'll swim up underneath a marine mammal that they've killed and just huck it into the sky so that it lands on the water, and they're like kind of slowly tenderizing the meat, and then they'll end up eating it.
I think I've seen a video of that, but I didn't know that's what the idea was behind that move.
I don't know if it's like 100% like they're definitely tenderizing it or just playing around.
Yeah.
But either way, it's definitely one of those things where, if you need a sign of sentience, playing with your meals is one of them.
They're just so incredible how intelligent they are. The coordination of their movements with other orcas and things like that. Just like, it's amazing because, it's like, okay, well, humans are on land. We're just these little weird, kind of powerless creatures, but like orcas are like super intelligent and like incredibly fast and huge and like it's amazing. It's like, Whoa.
The only thing missing is an opposable thumb. If they get that, then it's game over.
out. Yeah.
And they can start, constructing stuff. But as long as I can, whenever I see an orca, which is all the time, whenever I can do this, just like, I mean, you're cool, but like, look at me, like, check this out. You can't do that.
Not yet.
It's the only thing. Yeah, and they're just like, the oceanic white-tip shark that you have in here too is another example of one of those animals that's critically endangered. They're down over 90% of their historic numbers because of the shark fin trade.
Wow! Oh my goodness!
Used to be one of the most abundant sharks out in the open ocean, kind of the cleanup crew.
I was reading that they usually stay out in really deep open water. There's some species that like to hang around reefs, and some that are only out there. And then some that kind of go back and forth, I guess.
Yeah, they are considered to be the deadliest shark to people in terms of during World War II, when there were all of these ships that would be taken down in the battles. They do what they do, which is go and try to clean up after other organisms, and so they're considered to be some of the sharks that have interacted the most with people. But that again, often they'll be at the top list like deadliest sharks, and the reason that they're the deadliest shark is that there was a war that was causing untold amounts of human casualty, and we happen to be doing it over water too. So
exactly,
this is the greatest part in the whole game. Molas.
Had to get to this spot.
I don't know if you know. I'll need to get your address off stream, but I make these Mola stickers, dive stickers.
Oh, nice. That's
so
great.
I need to make sure that you get one of those.
Oh, super cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually just saw a video of Mola schooling at Monterey.
That was from a few years, 2 years ago, or last year. There was a bunch in the harbor. Yeah, they followed the jellies in, got kind of caught. They were right there on the boat ramp. Yeah.
Yeah, we were just looking at that video today, our team, and thinking about how cool that is, because I didn't know that they would do that behavior of appearing in large groups. But
the juveniles school together in larger groups typically, and so they tend to follow the jellies along, and they have that kind of safety in numbers because there's so many things that try to eat them. But in the Monterey Harbor, and so I don't know if you know this, but we're trying to popularize this term. In your next game release, if you could just like put it officially, like we heard it from the Monterey Bay Aquarium people. We're trying to popularize the common or the collective noun for molas as a guac of mola.
I love it.
And so, which of course leads to the very important, mathematical truth, which is that if you have a mole of mola, and if a group of mola is called a guac of mola, that means that a mole of mola is avocado's number of mola. So
that's brilliant. Yeah, see, this is the stuff. This is great. This is what it's all about.
This is good stuff. Emily, it's good stuff, see?
Yes. Social media content creators and game design consultants now. Yes.
Just put guacamole in the next game and we're good.
We have some thoughts about sunfish. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think we were talking about how a couple of members of our team saw a mola at the Monterey Bay Aquarium years ago. I think there was one for a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Very inspiring, massive.
Sorry, I'm responding to a direct message from our boss, Anne-Marie. She had a question.
Oh, okay.
Don't mind me. Go for it, Emily. You and Matt, take it away real quick.
Yeah, the molas are amazing fish. They're definitely a favorite at the aquarium. There are directors' favorite fish. They're many of our favorite
so
fish.
unique, just the way that they move, the shape of the body. It looks almost like someone forgot to put the back end on them.
Yeah, just one giant swimming head.
Yeah.
And like people look at them and they think that they're so prehistoric when in fact they're one of the most evolutionarily recent fishes in the oceans.
Oh yeah.
So like
wow.
the evolution, like this is what it led to. Like this is the optimal design for
Yeah.
box fish right here. Like you look at a puffer fish and you're just like, oh yeah, all right. But what if we just chopped off your butt and made those two fins really long, and then this is what you get is
Hey, man.
this fun friend here.
That's amazing.
So I just answered our boss's question here, and she said, "Now I have a very important question for Matt because she hasn't gotten her question answered yet in stream."
Oh, okay. All right.
So, Emily, we've ignored Anne Marie's question.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Anne-Marie.
Sorry, Anne Marie. So she's pulling rank, Matt. So get ready.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
What is your favorite animal or adaptation that was put into the game or that you learned about while researching? And it can be a top 3 favorite little tidbits that you enjoyed having in there.
Really good question. Really tough question. Because, I'm sure, as we all do, I love all of them. But, yeah, the goblin shark was one that we really stood out to us because we researched about its jaw movement, and we learned about that suction feeding thing, and then we realized, like, hey, a whole bunch of fish do this, and it really kind of opened our eyes about that.
Emily, are you gonna make the manatee jump out of the water?
I was trying to make the Mola jump out of the water, but it would not let me. Which Matt, next game, if you could put that in there for us.
Okay, we'll get that for the sequel.
They do actually
what?
breach out of the water. A sunfish, they will.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is insane.
They've done it at the aquarium. It's pretty funny.
Wow.
If you Google it too, there's a really cute video that came out like a month or 2 ago of like a tiny baby Mola. That's only like smaller than the size of a dinner plate, just like breach out of the water. It's just like this tiny little flop. It's like
That's amazing. That's super good. Yeah, these are the guys. I don't know if you guys can hear the audio, but they're making little squeaking noises. It's just an interpretation by us.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's a balloon.
a balloon.
You know, Emily, if you can get it to jump out of the water, we could call it the Hindenburg. Because, the huge manatee. Obviously, sorry to make light of that horrendous disaster, everybody, but, the pun was there. We had to take it.
Yeah. Oh, this is that's a sheephead fish there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the sheephead are actually ones that you see often off the coast here of California in kelp forests.
Mhm.
And something that we learned about them that was very interesting was that they actually change gender as they get bigger, I think.
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
age.
they change sex. Yeah, there's a really interesting
Change sex, that's right.
yeah, there's an economic graph of it where there's it was really fascinating in fish biology learning about it, where basically there are so many theories that we come up with in mathematics and physics and economics, like different things that involve data, where biology has already done a lot of those permutations and calculations. And so an interesting economic theory is that there's diminishing returns as a female fish that has to produce eggs. There's only so many eggs that you can make and so much energy you can put into making eggs, where at a certain point you as a female are losing out on being able to fertilize or have your fitness, which is just how many offspring you're able to have. You're losing out on your fitness by trying to produce more eggs, when at a certain body size it would just be better if you could just fertilize someone else's eggs. And so then you're going to have more offspring, more of your genetic material passed on if you're fertilizing all of the other females' eggs instead of trying to produce your own. And so depending on your size, and it depends on the amount of food around, there's one of those.
Hey, you found one.
Before.
Very nice.
But yeah, so basically all sheephead are born female and they produce their eggs, and they have a few males that are around that help fertilize those eggs. If there's a lot of food around, the females can produce a lot more eggs, a lot high quality eggs, and so they'll change sex around 13 years old or so if there's a lot of food. If there's not a lot of food, around 7 or 8 years old, they'll start making that transition Or if there's not a male around, then one of them will, the bigger one largely will transform into a male. And then they're able to fertilize more eggs than they're able to make themselves. And so it's an economics graph of, like, I forget exactly what's on the axes, but there's an overlap, a cross point where right there in the middle, if you change sex, you're going to be able to keep producing more eggs, keep fertilizing more eggs, have more genetic material than as a male than as a female.
That is super fascinating. And what's interesting too is that when they change, they actually, their morphology changes. They change color, they become striped, and we actually have male and female in here.
Oh yeah,
as well. And something I learned about at Catalina, they have a ton of these, and there was like fishing rules that that said that you could only fish sheephead of a certain size, and then they started to realize that like they were only fishing the males, and then the population started to go down, and they realized that they had to rethink the fishing rules to bring back the population numbers, because they hadn't kind of taken that aspect of how they work into account.
No, you're exactly right. That quirk of the biology means that male sheephead are the limiting factor of the reproduction of the population, because every sheephead that is born is female. So they're the ones that are. So you have this idea in your mind, like, oh, we'll leave the female fish because they're the ones that are laying the eggs. But if you have this setup where there are far fewer males than there are females, and the males are the ones that determine whether or not those eggs from the females get fertilized, it actually makes a lot more sense to catch smaller fish. And that is a repeated thing throughout so much of fisheries science, which is the incentive to take the big fish out of the water with the idea that you're going to let the younger fish stay and reproduce, is actually almost opposite what fish biology is, which is that the largest fish are the ones that produce the best eggs, the highest quality offspring, and therefore the most important to the population sticking around, and that eating the smaller fish is how it should be. The larger fish survived up to that point. We should be fishing for smaller fish, younger fish, because it's the big, it's this theory, it's the big bountiful, it's like the it's like the boss fish. It's like the boff.
You boff. It's
the boff.
The big old fat fertile females.
Big old fat fertile females. That's right. Thank you, Emily.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so big old fat fertile females are the ones that you want to keep in the population. So this is repeated so many different places. Like historically, we hear a lot about, like, say, bluefin tuna. Bluefin tuna is one of those fish that is famous for being endangered and not, like, very available, and it's one of those talking points. But in Japan, people have been eating bluefin tuna forever, and the reason that fishery became largely unsustainable is because recently the industrialization of that fishery and the focus on catching the biggest fish is driving that population down, whereas historically Japanese fishermen targeted the smaller bluefin tuna, younger bluefin tuna. That meat was preferred over the meat of an adult, and that changed with cultural shifts that happened after World War II largely. So you had this historically sustainable fishery because you were catching the young fish and leaving the old fish to reproduce. That got inverted very recently. So many, to the point of the game here, so many of the issues that we face with the ocean are very new inventions to human interactions with the ocean. And so there's a lot of things that we really don't have to teach ourselves anything new. We have to go listen to the people who have been living alongside these animals for thousands of generations, to learn from them how to interact with these environments. You don't really need to change too much, just have to think about how things used to be done sustainably.
Exactly.
Anyway.
And it is interesting because it gives you a sense of hope, because there is a tried and true solution. Like, it's not like, oh, well, I don't know how we're going to do this. It's like, well, you just have to think about it in a different way and study it and learn from how things have happened before. And so that's very helpful.
Shark friend.
There he is. Yeah, so in the game we have this shark that you keep glimpsing. And, we wanted to have the interaction with the shark kind of become more of the center focus of the game as you go deeper, and it kind of reflects, a change in perspective on the shark, as this thing that you don't really understand and you don't see too often, to something that you have more of a connection to as you start to go deeper into the game. And so that was kind of reflected in that little moment there. Just like, hey, just see him a little bit. Don't really get what his deal is yet, but part of the narrative.
It's awesome. Oh, we got some glow design happening.
Oh yes, glow theory.
Some glow theory. I imagine that there's maybe an ammonite around here that we haven't found, Emily.
I don't know. I might have gotten the ones in that room before. I should have paid more attention during the mural. No.
It's all good.
Those murals, you'll see them at the end of each area, so you'll be able to check in.
Check my progress.
We're just going to call you in every time we're playing this game. Matt,
we can't find this one.
We can't find it.
Yeah, I still think we talk about, like, if something's not clear enough, it's like, well, we're just going to have to ship you with every copy of the game to explain it.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, this is great. I don't know if we talked about this before. How did you get into game design?
Well, I am kind of on the art side of things, a visual person, an artist, I would say. So I went to art school, and
it's okay to admit,
I know it's kind of embarrassing, but no, I went to art school here in LA at Otis College of Art and Design, and I didn't really know that I wanted to do video games, but I did want to create images and say something with them. That's kind of all I knew. And I did a little stint in motion graphics and TV advertising, and immediately felt that it wasn't going to satisfy that, and lucked out having a connection in the game world, and kind of hit it off that way. But it was once I started doing it, I started realizing, like, yeah, okay, this is something that I can do and understand how to do.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's funny, there's an art to social media that we do. There's a feel to it, and I feel like you can really see when there's a feel, when there's a soul level connection to a specific thing that you might be doing, because it comes across completely differently than the type that's just, this is the format that I am interacting with you, here you go, as opposed to this format has an art to it, and I'm going to see if I can figure out how to do that with this lens in mind of the ocean here, in this game being a great example of that. Like, games can help tell. This is another tangent, but there's something that, diving more into the Twitch world, into the these video games and things like that, I've felt for a while too, and this is something that I've read in other places, that video games are some of the places where some of humanity's best storytelling is happening in a lot of different places.
It's a very vibrant space and time for it right now. Yeah, absolutely.
You've got movies historically, photography and things, but games, video games just like this one here, are able to tell stories through that visual medium, that cinematic medium, and then you have this tactile medium where you're playing it. So anyway, I just really feel like you can feel when it's done with a connection to the art coming through you, instead of it being just like, I'm just gonna put this idea out there.
And I think it's an interesting time for game development, because there is now a generation of designers working on games that is like the first generation that grew up playing games. And there was this first generation of games where it was these amazing innovators who were inventing first steps, but what they were drawing from wasn't video games and their experiences with them. And now you have that second generation, which is kind of what I'm a part of, and it's a new perspective, and add that to this kind of now you can make games a lot easier. The technology just exists. It's so much more accessible, and you're going to get a focus now on games that say something in a different way. So, and that's
Yeah, instead of just picking up the booklet out of the Pac-Man thing, you have to read through all of the backstory of It's like, well, we could only make it do this, but like here's the full story, and like you can actually have the full story.
So it's an exciting time, and there's a lot of cool stuff happening in the space. Oh, there's the whale shark.
Yeah.
What's with the spots on the whale shark? Do you guys know something interesting about those? Because those patterns are camouflage.
Yeah. So kind of like when you think of like leopards in the jungle and forest and everything, they have those spots along them to mimic dappled sunlight. If you can imagine you're swimming above a whale shark and you're looking down on its back, that black back is going to blend in with the darker bottom of the ocean. But you, of course, as a whale shark, are living in an area where you have sunlight coming down because you're feasting on all this plankton, and so you have those white dots on your back to kind of mimic that dappled sunlight as it's coming through the water there and kind of break up that pattern that makes you look like a whale shark there. That white belly is just like we're looking at it right now, with the sunlight shining down in the water. When you look up at a whale shark, it has that white tummy because it's going to blend in with the surface of the ocean there.
The counter shading.
That counter shading, exactly. And I love, we've talked about this before, but the keel on the tail of that whale is so impressive and so well designed there. Just that the very prominent slicing blade that attaches the tail fin to the actual tail muscles there is such a cool thing there. And I think largely the camouflage for these animals has to do for when they're younger. I imagine. I think when they're in adult size, it's like just more
not
of
a ton of predators going after them.
Because they give birth to live young, and they're 2 to 3 feet long when they're born, and that's like primo white shark, orca kind of chompy size.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah.
And a lot of them are born, for our local ones, they're born in the northern Gulf of California too.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually migrate.
The 60-footers, the full adults, the 60-footers, those are off of Ecuador, Galapagos Islands, like very, very tropical areas there. And then those same sharks are going up into the northern Gulf, giving birth. And then those younger, so you see, it's kind of fun. So I've seen 7 or 8 foot whale sharks in the northern Gulf of California. And then if you're in La Paz, people are snorkeling with 20 to 30 footers. And then if you're like in the whale shark zone where people go to see the 60 footers, it's just further south even. It's that same group that moves up. And you kind of have like teenagers partying in La Paz, like the little babies in the northern Gulf, like, I'm a bubble whale shark. And then like the big ones are off of the Galapagos and further south.
That's amazing.
For our local population. I don't know what happens over in like Indonesia and Indo-Pacific whale shark populations. If anybody knows in the chat, that'd be awesome. But
one thing that's funny about the sharks in the game, we studied the fins and the shape of them and all that stuff, and we learned about those kind of slicing side blades on the back of the tail, because at first I didn't know those existed, and then you realize like, oh yeah, how's it going to move sideways? It's this big, flat shape. You just got to have something to help it cut through the water, side to side. One thing that we noticed on sharks is that on the bottom edge of the dorsal fins, there's actually a little gap between the fin and the body, where it's actually there's like a slit there. And as the game was going through QA, which is like this process where people trying to like spot any problems or bugs, like we got a bug report that said the model has like a weird gap there, like you guys gotta sew that up or something. Like you gotta fix the polygons. And we had to say like, no, that's right.
Yeah.
We just don't know how sharks look.
No, that's such a perfect little detail. Yeah, it helps the fin when it just kind of flops over on itself. And
I imagine is to keep it just kind of moving in a streamlined way, but I'm not sure more about.
Yeah, so much of a shark's design is a matter of just efficiency and not trying to produce extra forces where they don't need to be. And so like that dorsal fin has a very important keel-like function, but it's also moving back and forth as you go, and you need there to be a little bit of give at the base, I think, for it to not like want to be tearing at that part there. It just like, helps relieve some of the pressure there. It's an amazing model. It just, these animals, biggest fish in the world here, and sharks are an incredible animal. I don't know, I think the term is the Struhal number. Are you familiar with that? It's like your hydrodynamic efficiency, and there's something about shark design, so like their face points downward, and so the water wants to push them down, right, because they're swimming into it. And then the tail fin, the top one, is usually much longer than the bottom one, and the effect of that is to push it upwards. So you have these two competing forces of, as the shark is swimming, the water wants to push it upwards, and then the tail wants to push it the opposite direction, which evens out the whole animal. Wow. So as they swim through, they have these forces that are canceled out, and so they're incredibly efficient. You can really see that if you're diving in the aquarium with one of the sharks. You can just see them go by you, and if they decide to take off, it's just like one tail kick, and then they're just they just glide to the other side of the exhibit. Incredible animals.
We actually learned about that when we were making the fish animation, cool. Because two aspects to that. One was, at first we just animated them kind of doing a tail motion like this, and we're like, okay, well, the intuitive thing is the faster it goes, the more it's doing this. But no, so we actually tied it to its velocity, right? So like if it's moving fast, it was moving more, and that didn't look right. The key was that they like you say, they do like one little flick, and then they just coast, and they go real fast for a long distance. And so we had to tie the speed of their tail motion to the acceleration, which is like not the velocity, right? It's a derivative of the velocity. But what that does is it says as they're ramping up speed, they have a lot of motion in the tail, and then once they are coasting, they slow down the motion, and all of a sudden it looks so much more realistic, and that was a critical realization.
That's so cool to hear that. Like, I don't know, it's so funny like to hear the concepts that that you learn in a marine biology class. Like I graduated 10 years ago now, but like you read about it, you see it at the aquarium, and then like in your game design, when you plug in those realities into how the math is working, it like looks right. That's just so cool to me. Like it's just like, yep, we can like, that is how it works. You fit your model to the math, and
exactly. It was really a satisfying process to see that. And the other aspect of the tail shape, you mentioned that the upper lobe is larger in a lot of species.
Yeah.
We learned that the shape of the tail and that symmetry, the balance of its more symmetrical or more offset upwards, can kind of tell you about how that fish swims and if they're super fast or not. Mm-hmm. So like the tuna have this, like, I think it's called lunate tail. It's like a half moon. Mm-hmm. It's very symmetrical and very thin. And you can tell, like, when you see that shape, that guy is fast. But then the Goliath grouper is this big slow fish that's got broad. It actually, the tail is broad, like, and it's actually curved the other way on the end. Yep. It's like a big fan. And so you kind of know, like, oh, they're much more for maneuvering around corals and in kelp forests and things like that are tighter spaces, so they need more maneuverability than speed. And just learning that, you kind of look at fish in a new way. You start to be like, oh my god, who's gonna act a different way.
And I feel like, and it's very similar with whales. You can see like a lifestyle of a whale, from a gray whale to a humpback whale, is very different based off of how their fins and flippers are looking. It's almost like how, if you're walking around in a city and you see someone wearing, like, a Patagonia shirt on, and then like, you know, the yoga pants, you're like, okay, like this, but then somebody wearing the Carhartt or whatever, like if you're walking around wearing the aquarium stuff, means I'm gonna go talk to that person because they know what's up, you know, like you can see differences of how the people are dressed for the activities that they do, or the style that they're going for, and you can tell a lot by people from that, and you can tell a lot from the morphology of fish of what they might be getting up to too. It's pretty cool. What can you tell us about this room?
There's a secret around here.
There is a secret around here?
There's a little secret. You should go straight up and then turn around.
Straight up.
Yes, right up here.
Oh.
Hello.
Oh.
So if you look closely, I think you might find a little clownfish.
Are we finding Nemo?
You might be finding Nemo. I think they're around here. Maybe they swam off.
Oh no, it's gonna be around the anemone, right?
Maybe. That's why we put them there. But it looks like they might have gotten lost. I don't know.
Oh
Where
no.
they-
Nemo, no.
Just gotta find
Now we
them, I
really
guess.
have to find him.
Are you aware of the sequential hermaphroditism in clownfish?
Is that the thing where they will change sex again, like depending on the population of how many are around? And
yeah, so
fascinating
when clownfish are born, they're also known as just anemone fish. When anemone fish are born, they're a null sex, so they're not male or female, and they go along, and when they find an anemone and they settle on the anemone, if there's no other clownfish there, they become female clownfish because they're going to live in that anemone. That's going to be their territory. And in this case, it's the opposite of a sheephead, where they're broadcast spawners. So being the male at the end of your life means that you get to be the one fertilizing all of these eggs and therefore having more offspring. Opposite with clownfish, where they're very localized, they live in a small territory, and so you want the largest fish to be the female because she's going to have the most resources to produce the best eggs that are going to only be laid in the small zone in that anemone. And so if you arrive on the anemone and you're first, you're going to become the female. You're going to be in charge of that anemone, and all subsequent null animals that arrive there, as we have the coelacanth, which is the coolest thing in the whole. But so if you arrive on the anemone after that female, you're going to become a male, and you're going to stay. All of the other ones are going to be males. And then if something happens to that large female, the next largest male will become the female. And the way that it's mediated has to do with stress hormones in the body. So if you have this female around, she's very in charge. She like keeps everybody in line. And clownfish are incredibly aggressive. I didn't know this when I went to Indonesia, and I was diving next to these tomato clownfish and got up right in their face, and they all of them came over and bit me, including the large female. They're just like biting at your face, and I'm like, goodness, you know. Then the dive guide said, yeah, they're very aggressive. So the female's presence there, she just lets everybody know, keeps all the males in line, and that presence of the stress hormones there keeps them from changing sex. And similar with different types of wrasses. And then when you remove that female, the largest male immediately changes its behavior and starts kind of being very aggressive towards the other fish, keeping them in line. And then because they're freed of the hierarchy, they're chemically speaking, they then change their sex and become the female there. Which means that in Finding Nemo, when Nemo's mom goes away, literally, instead of becoming more maternal, Nemo's dad would have become Nemo's mom. And then eventually, if Nemo's dad went away, Nemo would become Nema and become in charge of the anemone eventually. So
I want to see that movie.
Right? Yeah, we joke around at the aquarium. That was a little bit too advanced for Disney's audience, but you're here at the aquarium to learn those facts. So
yes.
Yeah.
In this room, you saw the coelacanth,
yes,
which is one of the most, I think, one of the most fascinating stories of the ocean. These fish were thought to be extinct for a long time until one kind of was discovered swimming around down there.
Yeah, it was off of South Africa, I believe. Was somebody found a coelacanth in a fish market, and they were like, where did you get this? And the local fishermen were like, oh, you like think these are cool? Like, let me show you. And they're like, what?
all over.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're fascinating because I think they have the ability, like remnants of like kind of like a lung-like structure. They also have these limbs that are very different than other fish's fins that are more thick and robust, almost like the first steps to evolving, limbs to walk on land. And so it was thought of as this missing link for a long time. There's new kind of creatures that have taken that mantle. But
Emily, you want to talk about our Sarcopterygian friend, our lobed fin fish friend, our tetrapod?
The tetrapod. Yes.
Yeah. So like we are all fish. Like if we're gonna categorize the fact that there are fish in the ocean, that fish exist in this world, and we have to recognize that we are fish, and our closest fish relatives are going to be lobed fin fishes. So we are coelacanths. Just a little bit more evolved than them. So this friend right here is a lobed fin fish, aka the Sarcopterygia. I also have most of the other fish that you see in this room. I think all of the other fish that you see in this room right now are Actinopterygia, or ray-finned fishes. So we descended down from the Sarcopterygians there. That's what led to, so many different limbs that evolved as we came out onto land and everything there. We also have relatives, as that transition between ocean and water to land there. You also get things like Tiktaalik, which you also have in the game.
Yes.
That little prehistoric. I mention it because I'm an
Emily?
evolutionary biologist by trade, and so I
awesome.
nerd out about all of this.
Emily?
I have
Emily,
Emily,
I believe you have something that you'd like to share with the stream.
I'm holding it. I can transition to this screen
I
here.
believe you have something that Matt might also to fully appreciate. The nerdum.
Just how much of the nerdum goes here.
Look at that.
Yes, this is my new little Paleozoic pal here. I have a little Tiktaalik plush. Which shout out to the Field Museum. Oh my gosh.
That's right, Field Museum.
I think I might have been their first order because they like popped it up on social media, and I was just like immediate, just oh my god, Tiktaalik.
Yeah, I love that guy.
We actually have a meme. We have a meme from our Abzu playthrough on our Twitch chat here, where when we get out of the water, we go Tiktaalik, and then when we go back in the water, we go oh dear, a whale. Because whales are related to ungulates. So
yes, they return to the depths.
Exactly. There you go. So hey, you might be familiar with the term, but shared morphological characteristics between lineages of animals, kind of that inflection point of these animals have this characteristic and these animals don't, and so that's where it bifurcates. The synapomorphy that we share with our Sarcopterygian friends, our tetrapods, our coelacanth cousins, one of the main characteristics that we share with them that no other animals have, no other fish have, and so like we're in that lineage, is enamel on our teeth. So
what?
They have enamel on their teeth, we have enamel on our teeth, and other fishes do not. And so shout out to Giacomo Bernardi, my French Italian ichthyology professor over at UC Santa Cruz. He did an entire presentation on how there's no such thing as fish, or we are fish, because what we call fish is paraphyletic if we're not included in fish, but if we include ourselves in fish, then fish can be a thing. And then he would just put up a photo of Angelina Jolie and just be like, now look at these lips and tell me we are not fish. I rest my case. And so that it was a 2-hour lecture leading up to that one punchline, and I think that's what I've modeled my science communication after.
That's incredible. It's very good. I love that. Wow.
Yeah. And I had for a long time at the aquarium, I had a coelacanth keychain from some Japanese colleagues, and I just have it in my pocket, and that way people could ask about it. We'd be like, oh, let's talk about like fish evolution. So anyway, love that there's coelacanths in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love them because that story is, again, it's just this connection to what you thought was a lost time. Oh, here we go. Got the
This
the
sequence is incredible.
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
blue whale. I'm
This
bigger
was,
than most things.
This was something that we had from the very beginning as a concept for the game. You know, we needed to have this swimming with the whales moment, and it's a part of the music where it's actually like a 3/4 music track. It's like a ballet, like very dance like, and
Yeah.
it's the ballet with the whale.
Largest biomechanical event on the planet is when a blue whale drops its jaw down. The muscles and forces associated with that are it's the most intense single mechanical event that a biological animal or that a biological being does on the planet, is that right there.
Yeah, apparently, like, they will dive and just gulp huge amounts of water, just tons of force in that action.
Look at
It's
that.
just
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool.
There's the eye.
Just a gargantuan, flippy, roly cow.
You know, and the whole idea there with them spinning and them all spinning, again, it's trying to capture this idea that they are playful. You know, they're not just these kind of automatons. They have like these personalities and almost like a culture and all these kind of things. They're just so fascinating with whales. Yeah,
That's so cool. I'm not rushing anybody. I just wanted to point out it's 5:30.
It's 5:30,
and we
yeah.
said we would go till 5. Do you have to go anywhere, Matt?
no.
Let us know if you want to wrap up.
Yeah, no, I know. It's so much fun to talk to you guys about this stuff.
We
It's
can
hard
keep
to
it
find
going.
people who we can
I can
really
also
nerd out.
play faster too. Like,
No,
That's
no,
fine.
I'm just taking my time.
I think though my webcam is struggling. I have to turn on the lights. That's how long we've gone. So one second. Oh my goodness.
It's just too much fun.
Threw off the white balance. I've got wonderful lighting in here.
This has to be one of the coolest. Oh no!
Oh God.
This, yeah.
Death pyramids. I forgot about you.
So, what in the lore in your mind, what are the death pyramids about? They're just like leftover defense mechanism protecting something, or like in your mind, and obviously without like committing to anything. Like what would be a way to think
What
about
the
it?
heck are those things? Yeah, you know, so in the game you have this is a big transition moment where you've been swimming relatively peacefully and exploring the depths, and there's only kind of this minimal presence of the shark that may or may not be scary, and you've just had this kind of dive with the whales that drop you off down deep, and this is kind of a moment where things that have been at the bottom of the ocean lurking, the character's past, the character's history, are now being explored. So this is kind of mirror of the character diving back into themselves and seeing what happened to your actual dive into the ocean. And so these triangles, you know, there's actually one of the triangles painted on the character's back. And so you start to realize there's some connection between them. So yeah, it's definitely like a thing where you kind of piece it together as you go, and this is the very first indication. Like when you get that shock thing, you're like, it's very surprising for many people because they did not expect that from this game.
Right, right.
Oh, is this the goblin shark?
Yeah, and
Since we were
Emily's
talking
gonna.
about it before.
This is fan service. We're gonna make sure that everybody sees this goblin shark eating animation.
Woo!
Oh, let's see that again. Boom! Nice.
That's perfect for the camera. Thank you.
Yeah, who was it? Bree Sky. Yeah, Bree Sky over here. I guess spent over 3 hours trying to record.
What we just saw right there.
Yeah, to see that.
Very nice. Yeah, I
It's
think
those
that,
pro gamer moves, you know. This is why they pay us the medium bucks.
Yes.
What a ridiculous animal.
Yeah.
There's a meme that we'll do on our social every once in a while of just like biology having a conversation with the animals and just like, all right, like body plans, and it's like a whale's a whale and then dolphin's a dolphin with the various emoji, and then it gets to comb jellies and it's just like like lights and tentacles and like all these things here. So I feel like the conversation between biology and a goblin shark was just like, so like, what do you want? Like, I want a big nose and I want a mouth that goes out to the end. Like, whoa. Oh, okay. Pretty intense, but
yeah, they are truly a unique creature.
that's great stuff.
This area also has the Humboldt squid,
Yes.
which is a very unique creature in the game because it's one of the only ones that can swim both ways, back and forwards.
And you watched an Mbari video of it changing color like that, right? The flashing.
Oh, I mean, I watched them all.
Yeah. Because that is one of the coolest aspects of them. Yeah. Emily's riding the Humboldt squid, and that's the proper orientation. That is the proper orientation to be riding a Humboldt squid.
Yeah. So those guys were super fun, and we had to fight to get those in the game, you know, because we had all this code that was assuming fish go straight, you know. We're like, no, we gotta make a special case here. Gotta get these guys, and we were able to do it, and they actually will flash like that because we read that they actually do that to kind of stun their prey, like kind of mystify them first before they get them. And we also have them doing a lot of kind of cool squid poses that we noticed that they do. When they're just kind of idling about, they'll adopt these kind of interesting shapes.
They have a lot of body language.
Yes, they do.
With other Humboldt squid, they can be cannibalistic, and so they do have a huge repertoire of moves that they do with other Humboldt squid. There's a few videos that our colleagues at Mbari have filmed of. There's a feeding frenzy, and there's one Humboldt squid that is freaking out and pumping all of its ink that it can and hiding inside the ink cloud because it doesn't want to get found by either the ROV or the other squid that are currently going around. So
there, these guys do the inking too.
There goes the ink.
Had to get that in there.
The first time I saw an octopus diving, Matt, I was out here in Monterey at San Carlos Beach, and I was swimming around, very new diver. We see our first octopus. I'm like, oh my goodness, here's this octopus. And my dive buddy goes up and kind of like scoops the sand underneath it. And so now the octopus is like in his hand, and we're just like staring. And I'm like, what? And like, I don't recommend you do that now, but like, you know, looking at this octopus. And then it inked and like swam off. And I had learned about the inking, and I had never seen one do it. And so I looked at the ink and I was like, it inked. Look, this is the way that it can like confuse a predator so that it goes and hides. That's so cool. And then I looked back and I couldn't find the octopus. We lost it.
It totally worked.
It knew that we were like ocean nerds to the point where it's just like, it's not, if I ink, they're going to be so fascinated by this as a defense mechanism, I can actually get away. And it worked. So
that's so cool. Wow.
Not embarrassed to admit it.
Oh yeah, and then we put the whale fall area, which is just a super fascinating ecosystem in itself. They sustain life on the bottom of the ocean in many ways.
Yeah, have you heard the historic abundance of whales is thought to have been a major climate mediator, or like a major um, carbon source, or a way that carbon moves through the ocean, because whales, being several hundred tons for a blue whale, come up to the surface, poop, bringing up food from deeper water, fertilizing the surface, helping plankton grow. So you're moving this food up and down and helping produce all this biomass. And then when the whales die, they bring 100 tons of food down with them. And so this elevator, this whale-based elevator of carbon fluctuation, a lot of people, I think it was some article related to a climate model that wasn't quite lining up based off of different things. And then once they accounted for biological aspects of it, of whales being far more abundant than they are currently. And Emily is just running the gauntlet.
Chain whacked there.
Whoa, hold on. We didn't notice those on the first playthrough, did we, Emily? The carnivorous sponge?
No, I did we? I don't know.
I don't know if we noticed. These are carnivorous sponges, right?
I think so.
You.
Yeah.
Ooh, you know how to. Ooh, yes. Carnivorous ping pong ball sponges. So for those of you out there who thought that sponges are just Bob with the rectangular pants, my goodness gracious, that is the coolest thing. Like these predatory sponges will catch things out of the water and eat them like just absorbent traps, as it were.
It's super interesting because there's some like species that are very diverse in the ocean that have like relatives on land that you don't think of as being too crazy, like worms.
Mhm.
Like in the deep sea, you've got crazy worms that are just fascinating with all kinds of shapes, and sponges the same way. You think, oh yeah, sponges, they're pretty, boring, but actually no, like there are some really crazy things that they do.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, one of the harp sponges or lyre sponge that Embari filmed, they grow their axes perpendicular to the predominant currents. And so there's some that are perfect crosses where there's currents that go one way, currents go the opposite way.
Wow.
Others that are just one long line. And they have these pillars that have glass spines on them. So one of the main things that sponges produce, and the way that you can tell them apart from other species, is spicules, these glass rods that they build up. So if you do microscopy on a sponge, you can tell them apart that way. But these ones are like little meat hooks. And so if you're a little thing drifting along the bottom current, you just get impaled by one of those glass shards, and then you get stuck to the rod, and then the sponge grows around you to digest you. So you can see which parts of the sponge have something that they've like gathered up. It's like feels very like Frodo in the cocoon type, like just like
That's
curled
amazing.
up around. Oh,
It's just so insane.
I'm so glad we live at this scale, like
It's a good scale.
it's
Yeah.
a good scale to live at, I'd say.
There's some crazy scales out there. You were talking about the whales as this kind of vehicle for biomass to translate
a carbon
vertically
pump
and carbon. Like it reminded me of another thing we were reading about when we were developing the game, because we were reading about these, I think, like lanternfish, which are these extremely numerous deep sea fish, very small, but there's tons of them, and they have little amazing bioluminescence on them. There's a bunch around I think in this area, but these I think they were developing radar, and they were doing these tests to see how deep the ocean was, and they were getting these bizarre different depth because
the false bottoms.
Exactly. And they realized that it was the migration of lanternfish and similar creatures at night would rise up to get at some of that biomass that's up in the in this more sunlit zones of the water, and then they would lower, and because they were so dense, the radar was bouncing off of them and reading different depths.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was the sonar It was
Sonar.
the sound.
Sonar.
Yeah, it was a sound. And they were finding these false bottoms, and it became known as the deep scattering layer because your sonar wave was being scattered, and it was bouncing you back this false bottom of the ocean that was much higher up. And yeah, so lanternfish, also known as myctophids, are called that because they're so oily. People used to use them as lantern oil. Like the idea is you could set one of these things on fire and it would burn a lot because they're so oily.
Wow.
Critically important fish for the ecosystem. So many animals eat them. But you thinking through, we've talked about this feature for previous animals, but do you know what the sonar was bouncing off of on those animals for them to see?
I don't.
Their swim bladder.
No way.
Yep.
Boink,
That's crazy.
boink, right back. Yep.
Wow. That's fascinating.
Yeah. And how cool is that? And so then, that depth contour, rising and falling, that's a really important part of the ocean, that biological flux. And Emily, you're swimming through this level again. I remember we spent, I think, almost all of our 2 hours in the same spot.
I think we spent 2 episodes in here. I
think we spent 2 episodes in here because it was like the cool. There's so much to talk about in here, but yeah, that migration, that diel, it's called a diel vertical migration, meaning that it's tied with the night and dark, come up and down. And you can actually track where the food is based off of where the whales dive. If you tag a whale, it'll dive shallower at night than it does during the day because the food goes down to hide. And then at night it comes up to feed. And so whales at night are diving shallower to where the food is. That migration, that vertical migration for some of the animals, some of the copepods, is the longest migration of any animal in terms of their body size. And it happens twice a day.
That's insane.
So you think about the wildebeest migration, traveling all of those miles, and it's like, wow, that's really far. Copepods and other organisms are doing that up and down twice a day, and it's longer than that in proportion to their body size. It's an incredible feat happening in the ocean. And it works for these animals. They're crawling through the water. And then there's, tides rising and falling that help out. But
that scale gives them that interesting maneuvering.
yeah.
But wow.
Like imagine if you had to commute 120 miles to go to the grocery store, That's pretty much an equivalent.
Yeah, I don't commute anymore, pandemic.
Right. Oh, sorry.
I can imagine,
before times. Yeah. Imagine your DoorDash delivery guy is just like, I'm 5 states over. I'll be there soon.
Yeah. Wow.
This is cool.
Yeah, we got really excited that you put sea pigs in here as well.
Oh, yes. I love a sea pig.
Yeah. We're hoping to have some in our new Into the Deep exhibit.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are able to bring them up? Because they're like on the bottom, right?
Yeah, but fortunately they don't have any air pockets. So basically the main thing for them is oxygen and temperature and light is the main things. The pressure is less of an issue for them.
Oh, interesting. Because I read that their little legs kind of inflate and deflate in some way. How does that work? The way that they walk. Yeah.
So as echinoderms, they have so they're a sea cucumber. And they have what's known as a water vascular system, and so their appendages are powered by water inside their structures. So you pull the water out of the leg, it retracts. You squirt water into the leg, it expands, and then it lands, and then retracts and moves the animal forward. Shark friend, no! We must save.
I will use my mother power.
Oh, use your muscles.
So yeah, this is
our female shark friend. Good friend.
Yes, we can know that it's female because of the lack of claspers.
Exactly right. If you see twin sausage fingers near the tail end, everybody, you're dealing with a male shark. If not, you're dealing with a female shark. And if you see a shark going doo doo doo, that's baby shark.
Yeah, so that scene, you see the shark trapped under one of the pyramid things with like the electricity and all that stuff. And as a game designer, you have to, in order for people to understand what that means, you have to know that the triangle, what a triangle thing does. And so because you had the experience in the room prior, getting shocked by them, you now have some empathy for the shark.
Is
So
that
that was our little trick.
is it a similar term in game design? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Is that something that you are familiar with in?
I am not, however. Sounds like something I should be familiar with.
Oh no. Well, so the hierarchy of needs is something in a lot of museum interpretation stuff, where basically there are certain things that people need to know before they can be present with you and learn and do the experience that you think you
Okay.
need. So one of the first things when people walk into the building that they ask is, where's the bathroom? That can be very aggravating as somebody who just wants to tell people about fish, but people have traveled for hours, they've come into the aquarium. The first things that they want to know is, where's the bathroom? Like, where can I, like, am I going to be able to go to the bathroom here? There's a giant squid. That's
There's
so
giant squid.
Shout out to the studio.
Yes.
Does it have your logo etched in there in the chromatophores, or?
This guy was a labor of love for one of our programmers. We just wanted to make it so that this guy existed. He's like the Humboldt squid earlier. He's just very unique compared to all the other creatures in the game, and even more so because he has the tentacles that can interact with you, and all that stuff. But yeah, just we were looking at, because at the time we were seeing that amazing video of the giant squid that they captured at depth, and it was this incredible, unexpected, shiny color. It was like silver and gold, and like you always see them kind of red, because when they come up, they're that color. But in the context,
You're making the squid do a barrel roll, Emily.
I mean, what else do you expect me to do?
I mean,
Look at
I
that.
would be mad if you didn't.
It's just like every arch that we see, we have to swim
We have
through
to swim
it.
through it. Largest eye in the animal kingdom, right there. Sorry, Matt, you were saying.
Oh no, the whole point of my little spiel there was that we made him shiny because of that.
That's so great. I'll wrap up that other thought about the hierarchy of needs. When people come into the aquarium, they want to know, where can I eat? Where can I go to the bathroom? Can I go pay for parking? Is my kid safe? Am I going to be comfortable here? And then once you have all those things in a row, then they're ready to learn. And so sometimes people will have negative interactions with people because there's a certain need that isn't met, or if you don't meet that need, then they're not going to get it. And so I feel like, at the beginning of the game, you were mentioning, there's a lot of different subtle clues to the game, to the player, as to here's what's going to happen. Here's kind of taking care of you, making sure that it's not just like a complete open world sandbox.
Yeah.
You have no idea what's going on.
We talk about that a lot, and actually that's a really nice bit of vocabulary to talk about that. We refer to it as tutorialization. You have to learn certain prerequisite skills and knowledge in order to play the game. You have to know the rules. And so the first level is very commonly really focused on teaching how this works, and then you subvert that, and so those expectations get turned around. But yeah, that's a really important part.
This is so cool. And I don't know, so giant squid, just like so, Architeuthis, we have them in the Monterey Bay. We've never filmed them with our ROVs because there's a selection bias with an ROV as to what animals you're going to film. You're very loud, you're very bright. And so what a lot of people have said is the animals that we've seen with ROVs in the deep sea are the slow, dumb, or blind animals because they don't see the lights coming. They don't care that there's this massive thing coming towards them, or they can't swim away fast enough. And so we've seen some mega squids in the bay, like Moroteuthis is a larger squid, not a giant squid, but a larger squid that we have here in the area. Humpback sperm whales like these that we have in the bay every so often will feed on those. But we've never filmed that giant squid because they definitely don't want to be hanging around. But apparently the thought for how they feed is they have those two super long tentacles that'll stick down in the water column, and they have hooks and claws at the end of them. And so they have their tentacles dangling down, and it's thought that they eat other squid and other fish that swim by. And so when a fish comes through, they trap them between those club tips and then pull them back up and feed that way.
Wow.
So they'll often have their so if you have the squid here, they'll have those arms dangling down here with a little trap hanging out in here. There's a few amazing squid that Embari has filmed, one of which those ends of those tentacles, instead of having clubs on them, look like another smaller squid. And it swims around like a little smaller squid with little fins and stuff on the end. And the idea there is that a fish comes up and tries to eat this obvious squid, and then it's actually attached to a larger squid.
Wow, that's amazing.
Which is, oh, I love that.
Yeah, when we were animating the tentacles, we did some research about how they move, and it turns out that on Humboldt squid, and I think a lot of squids anyway, there's actually two different kinds of tentacles they got. Then there's like those two that you were mentioning. I think they call them arms, or maybe no, they're the tentacles, and the rest are arms.
And, exactly.
And they actually have a very different layout of musculature, and they're kind of similar to your tongue. I think it's called like a hydro something or other, a hydrostat maybe. But it's like this arrangement.
Hydrostatic skeleton.
Thank you. Yes. And they're muscles bound to other muscles instead of to bone. And depending on how those muscles are arranged in this kind of tube, it affords different kind of movement. And so the arms, which there's like 8 of them, they can move in and out like this. And but the tentacles can stretch forward, and it's kind of like this. You squeeze it, and that extends like its volume. And so they use those two forms to, reach out and grab somebody, pull it back, and then hold it. And that just was fascinating to me.
How cool is that? Right?
So cool.
Yeah, there's cuttlefish have the same setup, where they have the arms, and then depending on who you talk to, cephalopods will have 6 arms and 2 legs, because sometimes there's octopuses, or there are different octopuses that will walk around with just 2 arms, 2 tentacles, 2 appendages, and then those would be the legs, and then they have arms that are more for manipulation. With cuttlefish, squid, a lot of times those tentacles, they're the spring-loaded ones in the middle that'll shoot out and grab stuff, or be that like retractor device, and then the manipulation happens with those arms there too. So the 8 arms plus 2 tentacles, or the 10 appendages of the squid. Absolutely, that's
and you
super
can
cool
see
detail.
that the suckers on the extending tentacles are concentrated on the ends, because that's what where they're using to grab you. They don't need it on the length of it, but the arms, they have the suckers all the way down because they're trying to hold you.
Yep, and those suction cups on a giant squid, I'm sure you know this, but they have tooth rings.
Yes, I knew you were going to mention that. That's awesome.
Like, just can you imagine? Like, high five. Oh no. Yeah, they have these serrated tooth rings. You can tell different squid species apart from it, and that's with the sperm whales. We've talked about this before. Are you familiar with ambergris?
No.
You heard of ambergris? So, when a sperm whale is eating squid, there's the hard beak, and then there's those teeth rings inside the suction cups that are very, very hard and also very, very sharp. So you've just eaten the squid. Now you have this squid beak that can slice through things like butter. And now that's inside your soft belly. And so in your stomach, in a sperm whale digestive system, they start coating all of those squid beaks and teeth rings, start coating it in a waxy substance. And then they poop it out or vomit it out. And that substance, that waxy substance, is incredibly good at binding fragrances in very high-end perfumes to it. So you have the result of an epic squid sperm whale battle in the deep sea, helping people smell extremely good with your Chanels and whatnot in your perfumes. And that's right, Chockvocado. Pat found an opening for ambergris every stream. Figured it out.
Yeah.
Yes. So every so often there's a kid walking along the beach that finds $50,000 worth of whale poop in the ambergris because it's incredibly valuable. What was that, Emily? Sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say if we don't talk about poop at least once in the stream, then we've failed. Just fire us now.
Yeah, you get banned from streaming in our category if you don't talk about.
You got to. I mean, it's educational content.
My webcam is not liking how dark it is in this room. One sec.
Another really interesting fish in that previous zone was the opa.
Yeah, that was so cool that you included the opa in the game there. That's a fish that's actually for some of our curators at the aquarium, that's like the fish that they've never been able to keep inside of an aquarium, but that they want to so badly before.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because I was looking at them and they're this deep sea fish. They're very kind of like a dinner plate, proportion, very circular. But they've got that very thin, like moon-shaped tail, like the tuna. Mm-hmm. And so when I learned, like we talked about earlier, that tail shape means, oh, this guy goes fast, But I also read that they existed really deep. And so it was like, what are they going fast down there for? It was this really interesting kind of question that they, just looking at them, kind of presented to me. And it turns out that as I read about it more, I think that they are one of the very few kinds of fish that has like a warm-blooded body structure.
Yeah, they're endothermic like tuna are.
Yeah,
they're the only known full-body endothermic fish.
Yeah, and that is to support them being fast down there where it's freezing, and so just a fascinating creature. It's so unique for that reason. And they also have like a this very similar coloration to the oarfish.
They do.
Yep.
Which I don't really know what that coloration is for, but it seems to be something that is a common.
Yeah, it's. I think a lot of it is when you see those colors are when they're agitated. I feel like oarfish, when they're down deeper, when people see them, they're like almost perfectly transparent, or not transparent, but like perfectly reflective of the water around them. And then they can flash these colors out of some kind of a display. So I think it's a similar thing there where they really blend in, but then they can be very brilliant near the surface.
Oh wow! Yeah, that's fascinating.
When they're handled, Opa are actually the life fish as far as like a goal for exhibition. They're the life fish for John O'Sullivan, one of our current collectors at the aquarium. But their skin is incredibly sensitive, and so handling them, their skin sloughs off. So fishermen that catch them, the Opa, they're meant for sale. Once you've caught them, they're you can really damage them. They have very, very sensitive skin.
Wow.
Similarly with thresher sharks, we have them in the Monterey Bay every so often, and we've wanted to have them on exhibit, but they are a high-strung shark, and apparently if you try to handle them, they get so stressed out they can have like mini heart attacks kind of things. And so that was learned a long time ago, and that's why you don't see a thresher shark in an aquarium, because they're just maybe that's the eyes that you see. I have a lot going on.
Kind of makes sense with that expression. Wow.
Yeah. Somebody asking how big is whale poop? Well, whale poop is generally like pretty diffuse, but the ambergris can be solid chunks. And Emily, I think last time didn't we get exploded by every single one of those? Yeah,
I had the worst time trying to get into this tunnel, and this time I'm just gonna go around everybody, and then it works so much easier. The more you know.
This is the kind of unexpectedly scary area of the game, and again, it's all a part of this arc. You gotta have that down moment if you want to have an up moment. So.
Oh, we can get real philosophical. How do you know if it's day if you don't have night?
Yeah, all
Love
that
without pain. Yeah.
Go Werner Herzog on everybody there, Pat.
Yeah. The penguin has left the colony out of despair. Here. No, sorry. I once did a Werner Herzog impression for a plastics campaign video, Matt. That's where that comes from.
Very experienced, clearly.
I was a straw that was having a bad time. I was torn from my maker's wrapper mere seconds ago, and now I know my life is destined to the waste bin of history. As many a wise straw has said, life sucks, ends, and you die. More or less was the objective, and the idea was that you can skip the straw to have a better happy hour because plastic straws are depressing. Anyway, shout out Werner Herzog if you want to stream with us. If you're watching.
Shout out.
Big fan
Here too.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite videos of all time is the penguin that's gone insane that's walking away from the ocean.
Oh, yeah. That's so good. What is he thinking?
It's a penguin. Or when he's in the jungle, the birds are not singing, they're crying out in anguish. Anyway. Oh yeah, somebody here in the chat mentioning this scary part is a really perfect contrast to the big freedom and catharsis scene that happens after, and then also those open worlds that you're exploring at the start. Like this is definitely a huge contrast.
Yeah, you take the ocean and it's just this big wide expanse. What's the opposite of that? Like a dark tunnel. So you have this as a level designer, you constantly are thinking about how the space fluctuates in scale, because that has such a huge effect on your feeling, both moment to moment, but also across the whole game. And so you have to kind of think about those different scales of the experience and make sure that they all mirror each other. And yeah, that's the fun of game design.
This is so cool. Those robotic sea snakes there are pretty fun.
Yeah, that was one of our little experiments. We realized we have all this tech to make fish swim. Well, little robot guy.
It looks very reminiscent to the. Oh, I remember this room.
Yeah, this is the moment where people are like, "Oh man."
Oh, come on. I think we just got exploded by every single one on the way.
Yeah, I think I just powered through.
Yeah, there is very difficult to get past here without taking a hit. I think there is a very slim path through, but like very hard to nail it. And yeah,
got this, Emily.
Nope.
Everybody, let's get some just GGs in the chat, some encouragement.
I'm supposed to go that way, but I wanted to go around, friend. Okay. Nope.
Boom.
Nope.
Oh, chain reaction.
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
no.
Oh, we're just gonna keep on. I'm just stuck. Oh gosh. Go, little buddy, go. Go, go, go. Okay. Okay, come on.
One thing is,
I mean, if we can learn anything from this game, Matt, is that geometry is the enemy. Is that correct?
Except when it comes to polygons, because those are definitely necessary for video games.
these guys have a few polygons. Yeah.
I feel like if your angles are adding up to 180 degrees there, you might be evil.
One thing that we did here, at first, when you get knocked by one, you see they actually disappear. Mm-hmm. At first, they didn't disappear. They could hit you like multiple times in a row.
Oh gosh!
Oh no!
That was too much.
No.
That was too much. So we made these ones only be able to do one time.
That part there feels like the Smash Mouth remix where it's just him saying, and they don't stop coming, and they don't stop coming, and they don't stop coming for hours. Ooh, hello, evil being. Shark friend, save us!
Friend.
Oh no!
No, shark friend, no.
Oh man.
Yeah, so this is the realize something. This diver is no longer just a diver; is a kind of robotic character.
Mm-hmm.
F's in the chat for Shark Friend, everybody. F's in the chat.
Shark
X. Was that a difficult decision from the storytelling aspect of like, you have that hero's journey kind of standard practice there? Was having Shark Friend go through that? Was that like pre-planned out, or was like, okay, this has to happen for that emotional connection? Like, what was the thought behind the design of that part?
Yeah, so we had this idea of like we talked about, like the thesis of the game, creating this connection with the ocean, and a big part of that is we want you to actually, through the mechanics, care about it. And this is something that is very special to video games because of their interactive nature. You can create a feeling of empathy, a feeling of care. And so in the beginning of the game, you had the shark attack one of your drones, and you're like, whoa, that's kind of freaky. And then we have this moment here, and because you have felt it as a player, we can make you care about this shark. We can say, yeah, sharks are big and powerful, but actually, they are worth your empathy, and they are an important part of this whole story. And when you lose this shark here, like, this is a tearjerker moment, and we knew it was working when we tested the game and we saw people react that way. And so, in many ways, the shark is this kind of representative of the ocean in the game. It's kind of this protector of the ocean, the voice of the ocean, and the avatar of the ocean itself. And so, by kind of focusing those ideas through this character, the hope is to make you care not just about this shark, but about its place, the ecosystem, environment. That was the theory.
I mean, job well done, I have to say. On the GDQ speed run, where I think this whole thing took, I don't know how long it took. I think it was like 30 minutes or something.
Like a half an hour. Yeah.
It was like a half an hour. This stopped everybody in their tracks still, because like that event occurred there, and it was. So then when we played through it, we knew that this was coming, and it definitely has that very powerful feeling. And then like again here seeing it there, I just think it's a beautiful execution, and especially using the idea of one of these apex predators, where so many people in the news, when they see that a shark bite has occurred, a shark encounter, there's this massive vilification. There's shark culling efforts. There's all these different things that people just want to get these animals out of the ecosystem. And what we've learned, certainly from here in the Monterey Bay, is that a lot of white sharks tends to mean that there's a healthier ecosystem, or there's more, like, it's a better ocean with the sharks around them. And so, no, I think it's an amazing thing to take such a vilified animal and make it a key emotional character in the arc of the story. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it was kind of a challenge because we had this idea, and we're like, people would ask me like, how are you gonna make people not hate the great white shark? Like, it's like it's such a vilified creature that like people would ask me that, and I'm like, no, you can do that in a video game. You can do that. And so
that's awesome. That's
cool.
So great.
Yeah.
Oh, sharks are friends, everybody. Shark friend. R.I.P. Rest in Pisces. Oh boy. Well, certainly, we're a little bit more of a bare bones operation now, with Emily swimming around without her exoskeleton.
Yeah. This was also something that happened late in development. We didn't really know that this diver was going to be a robotic character. And we kind of had this notion that, like, it's a video game. There's no air gauge. You don't have to breathe. That's just how it's going to be. You're just, suspend disbelief on that one. And then we, had this brainwave like, oh, it's a robot. Robots don't need to breathe air.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of a late thing that just clicked.
Now,
Uh,
why the transition? And I love the juxtaposition between discovering that our character is a robot and therefore, advanced technology from where we currently are.
mhm.
And your discovery of that is immediately juxtaposed to you're in the ancient ocean room with all of these ancient animals that are no longer around. I always thought, like, on our last playthrough, I thought that was fascinating that, like, okay, we have this high technology being here, and then everything around it. Like, at first, when we saw those animals, I was like, oh, giant salamanders, cool. And then it's like, whoa, hold on. Look at that head again, And so this was definitely a
Yeah.
shift of perception here.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because you've just had this kind of dark, deep moment. Like you literally went to the bottom of the ocean. You've had this. You've been diminished, right?
Mm.
You lost the shark that you realized was important, and so this moment in the game is the start of reflection, right? Like
Mm.
it's you're literally thinking about that stuff. You're reflecting on it, but you're also in this mirror of the world as we know it, right? This ancient version of the world is similar, but it's not the same. It's there's something that is different there, and so this, and then at the same time, we have you for the very first time. You're going to start walking around, which is also like the mirror of the way you move. This is definitely this kind of uh, reflection point.
Yeah. I mean, that's so cool. Yeah, when we were first getting in here, it's just like, oh, interesting. Like, oh, land creatures. And
Yeah.
we realized that they're
Tiktaalik.
dinosaurs. Tiktaalik!
Yeah. This is funny because the walking around aspect, when you're a small company making this game, you got to focus what your features are. You got to do them one thing well. And we were like, okay, this is gonna be a swimming game. There's gonna be no walking. That way we don't have to code it,
Uh-huh.
But the very first versions of the game, we actually had you be able to drop to anywhere in the world and walk around at any time. And we realized that nobody was doing it, so we cut it. We're like, okay, we'll save on that. But then we uncut it for this part, and my programmers were like, "What are you doing?" But I think that it really was important to give you that sense that after that kind of down moment, there's something changing. Like there's some hope still. Like, oh, there's something new. You weren't expecting. And it was critical for that feeling.
Yeah, I love that aspect of the storytelling, of just like, actually when we posted on Twitter, I realized after I tweeted that we were doing the stream with you, I used a screenshot from one of our last episodes where we're walking around, and I was like, oh shoot, is that like a major spoiler? And so hopefully people have played the game at this point.
Yeah.
Oh dear, oh whale. Dove back in. Oh, this is glorious. What was your favorite extinct animal that you were looking forward to having in here that you learned about?
Man, yeah, we got a few really fun ones, but one of the coolest ones is the elasmosaur. He's this big, long-necked creature that you see in a later area. But there's some cool guys in here. There's a helicoprion.
Yo, the best.
Just
the best.
Yeah, those things are just amazing. They're the
Goblin shark wishes,
I know.
Yeah.
So fascinating and so insane to think about how they use those spiral teeth.
And those were like can openers for like shelled cephalopods and like other armored fishes, right? It's like basically.
Yeah, I think that's the current thought. And I saw so many weird reconstructions of how that mouth shape worked, and yeah, we were reading about it, trying to figure out what we should use. But such a cool guy. And then here you're seeing the ammonites,
but non-ghost form.
Yeah, and then on the ground we have a kind of interesting, somewhat controversial interpretation of another kind of ammonite.
Ooh.
Yeah, they're around because there's, the ammonites that have the spiral shell, which are seemingly well suited for kind of floating. And then you see these ones with these insanely intricate twisting forms, and there are some theories that those guys were kind of sliding around on the ground, perhaps because they might not have been so hydrodynamic. And it's really not, to my understanding, at least at the point when we were reading about it, it's not totally clear, what they actually were doing. So we decided, okay, let's just go with that interpretation. Let's do that. And so those are the kind of, like we were talking about, the choices we had to make in how we reconstruct these guys. That was one of the more kind of crazy ones.
I love that. I love, just all of those stories, like iguanodons, people thinking that the thumb spikes were on the nose, like all those different recreations, and like, why not? Like, nobody, if you were to try to describe a giant squid sperm whale interaction to anybody, that's already so far outside of like understanding of just like, sure, it makes sense, like we're aware of it, but then if you look at these animals with just their structures left over, what they're up to is ridiculous.
Another good one in here, the Anomalocaris. They are like this amazing shrimp-like mega predator from the Cambrian. And they...
Tiktaalik!
Yeah, they were just incredibly crazy, and they had these two kind of tusk-like structures that were found without the rest of the body in shale deposits in Cambrian rock. And so people actually thought, because they had these kind of arcing shape with like little spikes on the bottom, they actually thought like, oh, that's just like a shrimp guy with legs. But it turns out that no, it was actually this mouth part of a larger creature.
And I love the Anomalocaris, meaning weird shrimp.
Yeah, that's what it literally.
Bizarre shrimp.
Bizarre shrimp. So those guys are fun.
Oh man,
they're swimming around.
I mean, just to think about how much change the ocean has been through in the 4.5 billion years of our planet. It was there, it boiled away again. Like, there's all these different things that happened during that time period. And then you've got these animals living in a water environment where the gases that are coming out are different. These animals on the deep sea vents that are moving around. And then you have the Cambrian explosion of all these different animals. And I love, there's an artist named Franz Anthony. I don't know if you've met him on Twitter. He's amazing.
Yes.
Amazing illustrator, and he did this poster of the Cambrian explosions of like first drafts of all these animals, where there's like a couple of them that have been found, and clearly like this didn't work out, like it did not pan out for that body plan to make any sense. But that was the time when like it was just like, stick an arm over there, we'll see, and then. And you have this funneling in of like, okay, like crustaceans, good, like sharks, nice, but all these other things just like, what if I had these? Oh, okay,
maybe try again.
Go for it.
The body plan, of like very early life forms at that time, like went from just kind of like a radially symmetrical thing that's stuck on the ground to this like linearly symmetrical, like front end, back end. Like that was the first kind of big innovation. Like, you got a head and a butt, like, okay, cool.
Nice.
Now what, and then they just had segments, like trilobites and Anomalocaris, and it was like, well, how many? I don't know. And then they kind of started specialized segments. You get legs, arms, and then fins, or whatever. But so interesting how experimental it was.
Right.
It still is, honestly.
Like playing all those animals, like playing DNA, like jazz when they're first like discovering it. It's like, whoa, what if we like did this? Just like,
I mean,
oh,
it all
maybe.
works. Why not?
Oh, that's so great.
A lot of people play this part and they don't even realize that these creatures are not around anymore.
Right.
You know? And they start to
man.
think that maybe later when they see a Elasmosaurus who's very, different, but and then they kind of maybe have that realization like, oh wait, all these guys, so that's
I mean,
kind of a fun thing.
So I don't know if you're familiar. We had a moment where we convinced a lot of people that elasmosaurs were still alive by a very good Photoshop of an elasmosaur in our open sea exhibit as an April Fool's joke. And there were people who literally were like about to book plane tickets to come over and see this thing because they were so excited because they didn't think it. And so we've learned over the years in our April Fool's jokes on social that we really need to stay away from fake animals because you can't invent a fake animal bizarre enough that couldn't fit in the ocean. So the only time that we were successful ever with a fake animal was when the invisible ghost nautilus came to the aquarium, and we pointed out if you don't see it, that's how you know you saw it. And like that was the joke. But then one year we did the woolly mola, the woolly sunfish, where I photoshopped a bunch of sea otter fur on our mola and said like Monterey Bay Aquarium resurrects long extinct woolly mola as like, the joke.
Yeah.
But then we had a bunch of people saying, congratulations, when can we come see it? And like people, it had a long tail of people asking about the woolly mola.
Yeah.
And that's,
Months
it reminded
afterwards,
us you cannot
have great power.
Right, you can't do fake animal April Fools, especially because the ocean will come up with something that you couldn't even think about that is real that you then need to like tell people about. So like all these animals here. So anyway, if any of you out there are looking into doing social media for a zoo or aquarium or anything like that, steer clear of fake animals on April Fool's Day. You will save yourself a whole lot of social care. There was the Anomalocaris going by.
Yeah.
This is so cool.
I think in this next area, if you keep going through there to that bright glow theory area, see there's a glowing line on the surface leading you here, and it's kind of glowy there. Yeah. Game designer tips.
You got the water flowing underwater.
Yes, this is our surreal idea. I think there's a giant turtle guy here. Yeah, there he is.
Yeah.
There's the Arapaima, and that's the Giga, the Giga, the massive turtle friend. Hello.
Yes, this is Archelon, the biggest turtle boy.
Look at him go.
It's just insane that turtles were that huge back in the day.
Are you aware of the 6 foot long dragonflies that used to exist?
Yes, in the God, what was that period? Carboniferous.
Yes. More oxygen in the atmosphere. Yeah.
Yes. Oh man.
Yeah. Can we have you on every stream?
It is.
By
fun.
the way, I just want to check in. It is now 6:30. How are you doing?
It's starting to feel it a little bit.
Starting to feel it a little bit. Okay. Okay.
It's a good stream, but oh man, yeah.
It's 6:30. It's been an hour since we checked in. That's definitely way longer than we meant to have you, Matt. So, if we need to wrap it up for now, I mean, I feel rumblies in my tumblies. I'm pretty sure other folks out there. We've got 110 people that have been watching this stream this whole time, but I know that biologically speaking, we are not, our Abzu character here. We require certain replenishment of nutrition and other things there. So I just wanted to check. See, we might wrap up here. We'd absolutely love to have you back on. If you wanted to, you can bring more of your team. If it's a one and done, totally understand too. You need to recharge for a few months.
This is super fun, maybe we should check out the Elasmosaur and then
Okay.
call it a stream.
Get to the Elasmosaur, call it a day.
Yeah. Then
Tiktaalik.
this was also a major programming trick right here, having a water surface that's at a different height than the rest, and being able to swim up and down in this tower. Ooh, that was hard. You just went past it. Wow, that one took a while.
That's and this is the biggest oh dear oh well of the whole thing.
Ready?
Oh dear. Nice. Oh, our non-dolphin friends. Oh,
the ichthyosaur.
Ichthyosaurs.
The ichthyosaur. That's right.
I love those guys. They are what do they call it when two disparately related, forms or animals convergent evolution or not?
Yeah, convergent evolution.
Yep. Is that right?
Yeah.
Fascinating because they take a very similar form to a dolphin, but one of the key differences is that when they swim, they go side by side, whereas dolphins go up to down. Oh, there he is.
There.
It's Nessie.
Nessie. Hey, girl. What's going on?
What's up? Oh, look at those lobed fins.
There they are.
Coelacanths.
The
Do a flip, Emily. Do a flip.
Can I barrel roll with her? No.
I don't know. It might be. We might not have time for that. Yeah, these guys they move so differently, but someday.
So cool.
Yeah, these guys are sweet.
And then
That's the Dunkleosteos, the thick guy over there. They are fascinating because they have the way that their teeth work. They are like plates that are not actually like teeth. They're like just part of its skull that's like sharpened or something.
Yeah, they're a really good example of the animals that used to really be dominant in the ocean, where it was all about defense by having armored plating, by just being super gnarly. And then a lot of those animals end up going extinct around the time that much faster organisms with softer bodies end up showing up. So like squid and ray fin fishes and other things like that kind of take over the ocean, where if you're putting all of your energy into producing defensive plating, that's less energy that you're spending reproducing, growing quickly, and so just this fast reproduction ends up, and softer bodies end up kind of taking over after that. So you can see this huge down slope of animals that were armor plated. Also changes of chemistry happening in the ocean. I'm not sure when Dunkleosteus was around, but that's part of the reason why ammonites didn't make it and nautiluses did make it. It was differences of reproductive strategies was the idea, where ammonites had this larval duration of their young being in the plankton and near the surface, where there was a massive change of chemistry, where there was ocean acidification similar to what's happening now in the ocean, where those ammonite larvae just didn't survive, whereas nautiluses lay their eggs deeper down where they live in the deep sea that changes much slower. And so is the idea that's why nautiluses survived 500 million years, whereas ammonites went extinct is that their larvae were being devoured by the ocean acidification happening near the surface. Nautiluses got to stay down deep laying their eggs, so they had much slower reproductive rate, but they had a more protected reproductive tactic. And so you have these there's so much game theory related to, if you have this style of reproduction, then this is the trade-off, and if you have this style of armor plating, this is the trade-off, and how different animals have made it to where we are now.
That is fascinating stuff. Yeah.
Look at that.
There they are.
There they are.
Controversy.
Controversy.
We're going to end on a note that's going to get us all the hate mail. How could you?
I apologize for...
Yeah, oh, these ones. So these are the ones I think, I think probably since this game came out, I think those are the ones now where they think that those were internal shells, I think.
Oh, really? Okay. Interesting. Yeah, because, this was the controversial guy right here.
Yeah, where it's thought that these are probably more related to the ramhorn squid in that they have that internal body structure, but that's not known. That's not known. But that's part of the idea is it curls back on itself. So that would have been encased in tissue, is the thought.
That is really cool.
But look at
See,
that.
I'm glad, because now it's going to go the way of the old dinosaur books. You'll look back and be like, oh, that's what we thought back in those days, you know?
Yeah, you can achieve immortality by getting it right or very wrong, you know? So it's either way.
Cool.
Oh, it looks like Chalk Vacado is signing off right now. Thank you, Chalk Vacado, for being part of the stream.
Yeah.
We've definitely pushed the endurance of not only you, Matt. Thank you so much.
Too fun.
Emily's thumbs, I'm sure, gotten quite the workout here, and then also the audience for being here for. This is our first 3.5 hour stream, Emily, is it?
Yeah.
No, we've done GDQ for
GDQ
4 hours.
was we did like a 5 or 6 hour stream with them.
Oh wow,
that was intense. Yeah.
Oh man.
I averaged a pun a minute, Matt, on those streams.
I believe it.
242 puns in one of that was like. The audience said, at first I hated it, then I loved it, then I hated it again, and now I can't look away. And I was like, that's the proper.
There you go. Fascinating.
That's right.
Well, that's really cool. I'm so glad that you guys, found the game and have been playing it and enjoying it. And it's just been great to talk to you guys. You know, obviously very like-minded. It's just fun to geek out about all this stuff. You know, we talk about
definitely.
the team. So.
Well, I mean, thank you so much to you and your team for creating such a beautiful game, such a lifelike game that gives you a feeling of being in the ocean. I think that's very difficult to do, is to really help capture people's emotions related to it. So I think it's a very good job. And we talked about this, everybody here that is in the chat. The second that the aquarium is open up, again, we want to see everybody in the chat visiting, but also Matt, you and your team, everybody, welcome to the aquarium anytime. Let us know ahead of time. We can give you the full tour, get some inspiration for Abzu 2 Reloaded, 2 Abzu, more Abzu, working title.
Two fish, two Fury
Yeah.
Ocean.
It's or Abzu the Sea Quill that we said before. But yeah, anyway, Matt, thank you so much. Do you have any parting words, anything for the audience, any plugs you want to have for the folks out there?
Oh, no, just thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And, check out our games, and, we keep making them. We put out another one called The Pathless. It's pretty cool.
Cool.
It has a lot of very different than this game, but you'll get the same vibes.
Is there an ocean tie-in? Is there a big ocean tie-in?
There's some connections.
Okay.
You'll have to search for it, but
Okay.
there's some secrets in there that Abzu
Gotcha.
players, they're for the Abzu people, so
Cool.
for sure. But yeah, the big takeaway is that the ocean is extremely important, and you gotta think about it and care about it, and that's it. So.
That's
Well
awesome.
put.
No, I mean, could have said it better. Emily,
Pat.
thank you for playing the game.
Hey.
Incredible. Well done.
I can't
Any
complain.
parting words here for our esteemed guest?
Oh, for everyone tuning in, just thank you so much for hanging out with us for 3.5 hours.
3.5 hours.
This has been so much fun. We can't say enough, Matt, how excited we were when you agreed to come and hang out with us. It's been a dream. So
so great.
so good. Everyone else hanging out in the chat right now, thank you so much. We'll just quickly go through our normal little spiel here. If you want a way to support the aquarium right now while we are still closed, it's been 11 months of closure. You can always do that by subscribing to our Twitch channel here. We play ocean video games, if you can't tell. So you can do that. All of that money goes directly to helping the aquarium. Of course, not everybody has the means to do so right now, as we are all in this pandemic together. So we totally understand that if you happen to have a Prime account with Amazon, you can subscribe here on Twitch using that Amazon Prime account to our channel for free, and we still get money from that to help support the aquarium. So that's one little way that you can help support us, even while we are closed and without a single penny coming out of your pocket there. And we really appreciate it. I can see that our incredible mods are in the chat right now.
Yep.
Huge GGs in the chat to Sarah and Celestina and to Deb for hanging out with us for the 3.5 hours as well. We
Yep.
did not warn them about that.
didn't.
And for
Thanks, mods.
for-
You're the best.
for taking care of everyone. We appreciate you three so much. And it's Friday. You made it. You made it through another
made it.
week. We're here together. I hope that you had a wonderful time. Please remember to be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other, and we are really looking forward to seeing you all again very soon. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
See you guys.